Hey guys, tonight we're slipping softly into the highlands of Ethiopia, 12 centuries ago, under a sky so wide and deep it feels like it could swallow time itself. We're not reading a textbook. We're not in a museum. Nope. We're right there, in the dirt, surrounded by flickering lanterns, the scent of crushed coriander, the sound of laughter somewhere behind a curtain of smoke. And we're hungry. It's cool out here. You feel it first in your fingertips, that bite in the air as you settle near the fire. Sparks drift upward like lazy fireflies. Someone hands you a piece of warm cloth. Wait, no, that's bread. Sort of. Soft, stretchy, slightly sour. The texture's like a crepe met a sponge, and they had a tangy baby. You're not sure what to do with it, but the woman watching you smiles like she's waiting to be amused. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know where you're listening from tonight. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first thing you notice isn't the food, it's the sound. There's a rhythm here, something low and constant, like the thud of something heavy against stone. Pestles grinding spice. A baby's laugh. A goat complaining in the distance like he just realized what's coming. The village is built on a rise, tucked into the crook of a hill that seems to roll into itself like a folded blanket. You've never seen a place so quiet yet so alive. Clay homes curve like teardrops, thatched roofs like woven baskets. And firelight? It's everywhere, flickering along the ground like shy dancers. Then it hits you, the smell. It's spicy, sure, but there's something earthy too, like scorched herbs and toasted flour, and maybe just the faintest note of wet moss. It's not clean, it's not sanitized, but it is honest, and you realize your stomach is very, very awake. A man you don't know is laughing as he squats beside a smoking clay oven. His hands are dusted in flour, his forearms dark and strong. He's flipping something with a practiced flick, thin round pancakes that hiss as they touch the heat. Injera, the lifeblood of the meal. You'll hear that word a lot tonight. You'll eat it even more. He gestures, and someone tears a fresh piece from the stack and hands it to you. It's still steaming. You hesitate. A quiet part of your brain is screaming, what if it's raw? But another part reminds you, this is not your kitchen. This is not your world. You're here to taste it. So you bite. Whoa, it's sour in a way that makes your jaw twitch, but also soft, nutty, deeply satisfying. It has the bounce of something alive. Historians still debate exactly when and how teff grain was first domesticated, but by the 12th century, it's already a staple, grown, ground, fermented, and turned into these spongy circles of edible joy. And yet, there's more to this bread than bread. There's pride, skill, maybe even a little magic. Some elders insist that if you let your teff dough ferment too long, spirits slip in. Others say a bad batch means someone in your house told a lie. You ask if that's true and get shrugged. Depends who's doing the lying, says a woman nearby, smiling without looking up from her chopping. This isn't just a dinner. It's a ceremony. Not the kind with priests and bells, though those will come later. This is a meal with a pulse. You sit on a short stool, knees up to your chest, watching the flicker of firelight catch in the eyes of people who probably don't have a word for introvert. Conversation flows without pressure. You're spoken to, but not expected to speak. Just nod, smile, eat. A large pot is lifted off the fire, and someone stirs what looks like a thick stew inside. A meaty aroma wafts toward you. Maybe lamb, maybe goat, maybe you're really hoping it's not monkey. You remember a tale someone whispered earlier about an emperor's cousin who served roasted hyena to scare away guests. Nobody laughed. Don't worry, someone says, catching your expression. That's tomorrow night. You're handed a shallow dish, and onto it a scoop of stew is ladled. You're given no fork, no spoon, no knife, just that same injera torn into manageable flaps. You pinch a bite and lift it a little shaky. It lands in your mouth. It's warm, spicy, slightly oily. You chew slowly. The flavors unfold like a song in a strange key. There's garlic, something sweet like cinnamon, something hot like regret. You reach for water and are instead handed a brownish liquid in a carved cup. It smells like flowers dipped in vinegar. You drink it. It's TJ, Ethiopian honey wine. Sweet, fizzy, unexpectedly strong. Careful, your neighbor murmurs. Second sip tastes like bad decisions. Everyone laughs, and you realize you're not just eating food. You're stepping into a rhythm, a pattern older than memory. This is what feasts were before forks and dining tables and microwave sadness. You're breaking bread with people who learned how to share long before they learned how to write. And tonight, you're one of them. You lean back on your heels, listening to the soft chant of someone telling a story nearby. Something about a talking baboon and a misplaced loaf. No one questions it. The stars above blink silently. You lick your fingers. You smile. You have no idea what's coming next. The injera is gone, and your fingertips are shiny with sauce. You wipe them on your tunic like a barbarian, but nobody minds. In fact, an old woman next to you gives a quiet nod, like you just passed some kind of unspoken test. Welcome to the feast, traveler. Another platter appears. This one is darker, more ominous, red, deep and rich, shimmering with pools of spiced oil. You watch as a man tears a piece of injera, scoops a lump of the red stuff, and pops it in his mouth with a look of grim satisfaction, like someone walking into a thunderstorm for fun. Then he coughs. Twice. Smiles wide. You ready? He asks, already offering you a piece. You're not, obviously, but you reach out anyway. The texture is thick, almost grainy. The flavor? Whoa. Your tongue lights up like someone flipped a switch. Chili, clove, garlic, something smoky, maybe fenugreek. It's berbera, the beloved, borderline violent spice blend of Ethiopia. A mix so potent it should come with a tiny warning flag. The meat it coats, goat, you think, falls apart easily. It's tender, chewy in a good way, and warm all the way down. Berbera isn't just seasoning here. It's identity. It's culture, medicine, tradition, and dare we say, mild punishment. You sip more tea, Jay, and feel it settle the ride in your mouth. The woman who made the berbera is pounding more in a huge wooden mortar nearby. She swings her pestle with the strength of a blacksmith and the grace of a dancer. With each strike, the aroma deepens. You smell dried chili, toasted coriander, garlic dried in the sun, cardamom, basil, and something you can't quite place, like crushed orange peel mixed with thunder. She hums while she works, in a language you don't know, but understand anyway. One of the men jokes that her berbera is so strong, it scared away the local spirits. She doesn't laugh, just winks. Historians still debate whether some of these spice rituals had deeper ceremonial roots. Were these blends meant to feed the body or to ward off the supernatural? Honestly, here it feels like both. A teenage boy passes by carrying a goat leg, so perfectly roasted it might as well be a trophy. He pauses to show it off to a group of girls who pretend not to care. One glances. Briefly. He grins like he just won a duel. Someone beside you mutters, "Married by meat," and you snort into your tea, Jay. You watch as the leg is brought to the central fire pit, where glowing embers still crackle beneath a canopy of stone. The spit it was cooked on is carved from acacia wood, and it turns slowly like the night itself. A couple of elders hover nearby, gently basting it with a ladle of butter spiked with turmeric and wild thyme. It's hypnotic, this quiet movement, turn, base, smoke, turn, and then the wind shifts. Just a whisper, and you get a whiff of something new. It's not food. It's not fire. It's incense. You turn. A small clay bowl sits nestled among flat stones. From it rises a thin ribbon of pale smoke. Frankincense, the kind that was traded across continents, down the Nile, through dusty camel trains and the salt roads of Aksum. That one wisp carries the weight of empires. The air changes. Softer. Thicker. Like the smoke is trying to hush the world. And then the drums begin. Not loud. Not yet. Just a heartbeat far off. Boom. Pause. Boom, boom. The food's not even finished cooking, and already your pulse has synced to the rhythm. You hear women laughing as they wash herbs in a wide leaf-lined basin. A baby shrieks somewhere behind you, only to be immediately soothed by a whispered lullaby. The goats are quieter now, as if they too sense something sacred stirring. You spot a clay pot of spiced lentils steaming gently. Nearby, a bowl of gomen, slow-cooked collard greens, gleams like emeralds slick with garlic. Someone's fanning flames beneath a flat pan, where dough cooks in slow, spiraling circles. And then a boy leans over and whispers, "The priest is coming." You look around, expecting robes and a staff, maybe. Instead, he's just a man, barefoot, beard like wild moss, eyes like he's already seen tomorrow. He walks through the smoke, and people part, not afraid, just respectful. He doesn't speak. He kneels by the fire, closes his eyes, and stays that way. No one talks now, only the fire and the wind and the quiet rattle of the pestle. He mutters something, a blessing, probably. You don't catch the words, but you feel them, like someone pressed warm cloth to your chest. He dips a bit of injera into a clay bowl, tastes, nods. Just once. Then, without fanfare, he leaves. You turn to your neighbor, who shrugs. He blesses the goat. If it was not holy, it would not taste this good. You don't know if that's theology or marketing, but you admire the confidence. Historians still debate the exact role of religious figures in daily meals during this period. Some say priests kept to their monasteries. Others claim they blessed everything from stew to livestock to afternoon naps. You sip more honey wine and decide you prefer this version of history, where even dinner is divine. The food continues. Spiced vegetables, pickled roots, things you can't name but suddenly love. And always, the bread returns, soft, warm, slightly damp, a constant reminder that every bite starts from the same place. You take another mouthful of Berbera goat and notice you're not flinching from the spice anymore. You've adapted, or been baptized, possibly both. The stars above you blink slowly. Someone nearby starts humming. The drums build just a little louder. The fire shifts, and your belly, for the first time in what feels like years, is full in a way that isn't just about food. By now, you've found your rhythm. Bread in one hand, drink in the other, and just enough space in your lap for whatever dish arrives next. There's no menu, no sequence. The food just comes like thoughts during a nap. Sometimes sharp, sometimes soft, always layered with something you didn't expect. Tonight, the surprise is a long clay tray of sliced flatbreads. Not injera this time. These are thinner, crisper, lightly blistered from the fire, and golden as afternoon sunlight. A girl with bright eyes sets the tray beside you and says, "Saint's bread." Then she walks away before you can ask which saint or why he gets his own carbs. You pick up a piece. It's warm, brittle at the edges, and smells faintly of something nutty, maybe barley, maybe sesame, maybe sanctity. You take a bite. Crunch, then melt. There's a sweetness to it, like it was baked with a story. Across the fire, someone explains, each holy day, a new bread. This one is for Abba Samuel. He likes his crust dark. You nod solemnly, as if that explains everything. Bread here isn't just food, it's biography. Each variety carries a tale. There's one for weddings, one for funerals, one for when the rain finally comes after 6 dry weeks. There's even one made only during eclipses, shaped like the moon, eaten in silence. Historians still debate the origins of these baking traditions. Some argue they were regional quirks. Others claim they were once royal mandates. A few even insist certain flatbreads were coded messages in times of war or rebellion. You look at your half-eaten triangle and wonder if it's trying to tell you something about your past mistakes. Next to you, an old man tears his bread carefully and dips it into a shallow bowl of mazur. What? Red lentil stew thick with garlic and enough chili to make your eyebrows sweat. He sees you watching and grins. "No meat in this one," he says. "God's watching." You raise your brows. "It's Wednesday," he adds. "Fast day," which is funny because the stew tastes so rich, so comforting, it feels like cheating. But in Ethiopia, fasting doesn't mean skipping meals. It means skipping animal products, no meat, no dairy, no eggs. But pulses, greens, onions fried in niter kibbeh, clarified butter with herbs, and spice blends are fair game. So is flavor. Lots of it. You spoon up the stew with a fresh flap of injera. It's thick, earthy, humming with Berber's now familiar kick. There's depth in every bite. Layers of smoke, sweetness, and a whisper of something metallic you can't quite place. You wonder if this is what honesty tastes like. A few children nearby are playing a game with pieces of injera. They fold the bread into little animals and make them fight across a stump, giggling as the loser is dramatically devoured. You admire the creativity. Bread, toy, and snack all in one. Take that, Legos. Then a hush. A new smell coils through the night air. Warm, sour, ancient. Tef. You watch as a woman pours a ladle of thin batter onto a large flat griddle, spread over a ring of glowing coals. She pours in spirals, not circles. The batter hisses as it lands. The edges bubble like lava, then settle into soft patterns. She waits, unmoving, until just the right moment, then lifts the edge. Perfect. One fluid flick, and it lands on the growing pile beside her. She's been doing this for hours, maybe days. Her hands move like a clock that tells time by hunger. Tef is tiny, so tiny it takes over 1,000,000 grains to fill a single cup. And yet it's a cornerstone crop. Nutrient-dense, gluten-free, drought-resistant, and fussy. It needs altitude. It needs patience. It needs knowledge that can't be Googled, which is fine because no one here owns a search bar. Some say the fermenting teff batter, left to bubble for 2 or 3 days, attracts ancestral spirits who whisper secrets into the dough. You watch the bubbles form and rise, as if the bread is breathing. Maybe it is. Historians still debate how much of injera's fermentation is intentional versus naturally occurring. Some argue that the bacteria and yeast simply thrive in this climate, making sourdough inevitable. Others insist it's a cultivated craft, passed from grandmother to granddaughter through generations. You believe the grandmothers. You've seen their eyes. Someone hands you another piece of injera, this one softer, thinner, almost translucent. You fold it, pinch up a mound of greens, maybe goman again, but sharper with raw onion this time. There's a vinegar tang that wakes you right up. The sourness of the greens and the sour of the bread play off each other like two friends arguing at a wedding. You eat slowly now, not because you're full, but because the fire is dying down and every moment tastes like memory. A pair of elders sit nearby, trading jokes in quiet tones. You catch snippets, but the words are strange. The cadence, though, it's comedy. One leans forward and gestures toward a clay pot bubbling near the coals. The other raises his brows. Again, he says, last time it burned your eyebrows off. More laughter. Whatever's in that pot is thick, red, and smells like it was made to chase away sadness. A young boy leans toward you. That's a ways. It burns the soul clean. You ask what's in it. He shrugs. Pain and love. Seems about right. The drums are quieter now. Someone hums an old tune. A donkey brays in the distance like he just remembered something embarrassing. You lie back against a roll cloth, stare up at the sky, and breathe in spice, smoke, and the kind of silence that only exists when no one's trying to fill it. Your fingers still tingle from berbera. Your lips are slick with butter. And somewhere behind your eyes, a deep, happy ache begins to bloom. You never tasted so much. You never felt so still. The night deepens, and so does the flavor of the air. Smoke settles low like a shawl draped across the ground. Your belly's warm, your hands sticky with memory. And just when you think maybe they've run out of food, you hear it again. Thump, 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 thump. Not a drum this time. Not exactly. It's a wooden pestle, long as your arm, crashing rhythmically into a deep mortar car from a single tree trunk. A woman straddles the thing with the casual authority of someone who's done this, since her arms were small and her voice was high. She's not pounding just to make sound. She's creating something important, something ancient. Berbera. Again, you watch as she grinds dried red chilies, garlic, sun-toasted ginger, coriander, fenugreek, and black cardamom into a fine powder. Her face glistens with sweat, her movements slow but relentless, like a song with only one verse and no end. The first time you smelled this mix, it startled you. This time, it makes your shoulders relax. Your mouth waters. Your feet somehow feel warmer. Another woman joins her, leaning in to toss a handful of something into the mix, dried basil. Maybe dried mystery. The two women speak in soft Amharic, never looking up, like the Berbera is a child that must not be startled. Historians still debate whether this pounding ritual was strictly culinary or if it had spiritual undertones. Some suggest the rhythm mirrored ancient songs. Others point to echoes of ancestral communication, coded pulses passed down through grain and muscle. You suspect both are true. After all, something about the sound makes your chest loosen, your eyes close just a little more than before. A breeze rolls through, stirring the embers and lifting a swirl of red dust and crushed chili into the air. You cough. Everyone laughs, including the woman with the pestle. "It knows who's new," she says. From across the circle, a deep voice calls out, "Add a clove for him." He looks like he's never sinned. More laughter. A boy appears with a tray of something new. Small bowls, each cradling a dark, glistening mound. You accept yours. The aroma is intense, earthy, almost metallic, with a slight tang that makes your nose twitch. Raw beef, minced fine, tossed with lemon juice, garlic, and you guessed it, Berbera, kitfo. It looks dangerous. It smells delicious, and the bowl is warm in your hand, like it just finished praying. You scoop up a small bite with your injera, half expecting your stomach to send up a red flag. But the first chew sends your eyebrows north. It's buttery, silky, not all what you feared. There's a whisper of heat, a soft hum of spice, and then the clean, lean taste of meat handled with care. You take a second bite, then a third. You stop at 4. Barely. Someone watches you and nods. That one is for warriors. You eat it before battle. You glance at your bowl. You're about 2 spoonfuls into a duel with fate, apparently. He grins. Don't worry. No battle tonight. Just stories. You're beginning to understand the pattern here. Eat something intense, laugh a little, then listen. So you listen. To the old man who claims he once fed a king. To the girl who insists she can tell fortunes by how the Berbera coats the spoon. To the baby who speaks in burps and squeals and is clearly the wisest among them. And you learn a few things. First, goat meat, when cured with the right smoke and buried under the right leaves, can last a year. Maybe more. No one could agree. Historians still debate the preservation methods of the Highland peoples, but the villagers seem unfazed. They just say, if it doesn't walk away, it's still good. Second, there's a beetle that tastes like nutmeg. No one will tell you which one. Third, someone's aunt once won a marriage proposal by making Berbera so hot the suitor cried. She considered that proof of loyalty. You start to love this place. Not just for the food, though, let's be honest, that helps. But for the way everything, every grain, every burnished pot, every word spoken over fire, feels woven together like the texture of that warm injera. Spongy, tangy, slightly unpredictable, and entirely whole. A soft chant begins. Low voices, nothing rehearsed. A lullaby of sorts. Maybe a prayer. You feel it settle over your bones. The pounding has stopped. The pestle rests against the mortar. Even the embers have dimmed, glowing like sleepy eyes. You realize something odd. You're not tired. You should be. The fire is low. Your stomach is full. The stars have been blinking for hours. But your body hums. Not with energy exactly, but with awareness. You're wide awake in a way that feels earned. You lick a stray smear of kitfo from your thumb and lean back. The sky leans with you. Someone yawns. A rooster, confused, crows in the distance. A hyena answers. Not close, but not far. No one moves. It's that sacred moment in any good feast. When the food is finished, the fire is quiet, and no one dares to break the spell. You shift your weight, and then someone sneezes. Chaos. Laughter explodes. A woman howls. A child tumbles backward. Even the priest, yes, the barefoot one, grins through his beard. You've survived the Berbera, and now, apparently, you've survived dessert. You don't notice the goat until it's too late. There's a gentle pressure against your shoulder, soft, insistent, and distinctly alive. You turn your head and come face to snout with the evening's former Atre's cousin, who snorts once as if to say, "Don't get too comfortable, outsider." Then it ambles away toward the fire, hoping for a dropped lentil or maybe just attention. It's late now, deep into the belly of the night. Stars swirl overhead in slow arcs. The moon hangs low, swollen like a waiting gourd. But the feast is far from over. Across the fire, a new kind of stillness is forming. Not the hush of tired people, but the anticipatory silence of tradition. There's movement near the central space, subtle, practiced. A woman steps forward, cradling something in cloth. The way everyone sits a little straighter makes you do the same. She unwraps the bundle. Inside, resting on a small woven tray, is a knife. Simple, iron, worn to a shine by years of use and reverence. Next to it, a curved horn bowl filled with something dark and glistening. "What Doro?" someone whispers beside you. Chicken stew, the centerpiece of any true celebration. But this dish doesn't just arrive. It must be introduced, blessed, witnessed. There's ceremony in the air now, thick as incense. A man with a weathered face leans in to murmur. The bird gives more than its bones. You blink, trying to translate that in your head, but before you can ask, the woman begins to divide the stew. She spoons it into bowls, carefully, precisely, always from the center first, always clockwise, always in silence. Historians still debate the roots of this portioning method. Some say it stems from monastic rituals, where food was shared equally to reflect divine order. Others believe it mirrors the solar calendar. Everything turning sunward, even stew. You receive your bowl last. A small hunk of meat nestled in a swirl of deep red sauce, the color of secrets. On top, half a boiled egg, yellow-centered and still warm. It looks like an offering. It probably is. You dip a flap of injera and lift a cautious bite. The flavor lands slow. First heat, then warmth, then something deeper, darker, cinnamon maybe, or a smoky fenugreek that hangs at the back of your throat like a memory. The chicken is fall-apart tender, soaked with every spice it's ever met. And the sauce, it doesn't just coat your mouth. It tells it something, a story of patience, of stirring, of waiting. You chew slowly, reverently like this bite was earned. The eggs, someone says gently, they go to the eldest, or the guest. You stare at yours. A few heads have turned your way, smiling, teasing. You've been claimed, apparently. The guest. So you nod, solemn as a monk, and bite into the egg. A cheer goes up, quiet, respectful, but amused. Someone taps a drum. The spell breaks, but softly, like waking from a good dream. You eat in silence for a few more minutes. The stew is rich, and you find yourself slowing down, savoring the oil-slicked edges, the spice stains on your fingers. There's a moment where you almost ask for more, but no one does, and you understand why. This isn't fast food. It's farewell food, a kind of edible punctuation at the end of the meal. Then someone rises and clears his throat. A different kind of ritual begins. He speaks not to you, but to the fire, tells a short tale, a parable, maybe something about a blind man, a clay pot, and a stubborn chicken. The moral isn't obvious, but no one questions it. Some things are for tasting, others for remembering. The man sits. Another rises. This time a woman. She sings. Not loud, not bold, just a thread of sound that curls into the smoke and disappears. The lyrics are in Guizi, the ancient tongue of scriptures and lullabies. Her voice is low, cracked at the edges, but strong at the core, like something that's been singing for centuries without ever stopping. Goosebumps ripple down your arm. Not from fear, from recognition. Even though you don't understand the words, the melody carries something that bypasses meaning and goes straight to understanding. Later, someone tells you the song was about a man who fell in love with a woman who cooked without salt. He stayed anyway. You sip the last of your honey wine. Your hands are trembling slightly, not from cold, but from fullness. The kind that starts in your stomach and spreads outward into your breath, your eyes, your chest. Another log collapses in the fire. Sparks rise, chasing each other into the night sky. And just when you think the meal is finished, truly finished, someone begins to grind coffee beans. The crackle of roasted beans in the pan. The slow rhythm of the grinder. The soft, dry clack of wood on wood. It starts again. A new flavor. A new pace. The coffee is coming. You lean back, belly full, head foggy, heart strangely light. The chicken stew still lingers on your tongue. And in that moment, as you stare into the dying fire, you realize you didn't just taste history tonight. You became it. The coffee doesn't arrive quickly, and that's the point. You're not in a rush. No one here is. Time's softened now, like butter melting into warm bread. The air has shifted again, too. Less spice, more smoke, a faint, herbal undercurrent that whispers, stay. Sit. Linger a while longer. In the corner, the woman preparing the coffee ceremony is dressed with intention. A clean white shawl draped over her shoulders, embroidery at the hems catching firelight. She's already seated on a small wooden stool, calm and focused, like a conductor about to raise her baton. Only instead of violins, she's got a charcoal burner, a metal pan, and a bowl of green coffee beans that look like tiny pebbles from a mountain stream. She doesn't speak. She doesn't need to. Her hands move in slow choreography. Beans in a pan, pan over fire, smoke curling up like incense. Within seconds, that unmistakable aroma reaches you. Roasting coffee. Sharp, earthy, almost floral. It clings to your tongue, winds through your hair. One breath and you're wide awake. You're watching something sacred, something slow. Not just coffee being made, but time being honored. Historians still debate the earliest uses of coffee in Ethiopia. Some say goat herders first noticed their animals dancing after munching wild beans in the hills of Kaffa. Others argue it was monks who brewed the first cup to stay awake during long, whispered prayers. Either way, tonight, it's being roasted just for you. She stirs the beans gently, the pans singing with every pass. A few pop and leap like tiny fireworks. She smiles slightly without looking up. You're handed a small bundle of grass to smell, aromatic, fresh, the Ethiopian version of table flowers. Someone tosses a pinch of incense onto the coals. The scent changes again, more ceremonial now. Sweet, woody, almost like church. Then the beans are done. She pours them into a stone mortar and begins grinding. Slow, rhythmic, a soft thud-thud that matches your heartbeat. By now, the whole gathering is quiet again, not in silence but in reverence. The coffee ceremony isn't an afterthought. It's the crescendo. It's what brings the evening to a close, not with a bang, but with a breath. She takes the ground beans and adds them to a jabina, a round-bellied clay pot with a tall neck and spout like a swan. Water is poured in, and the pot is nestled into the embers. It doesn't boil, it whispers. Tiny bubbles, then steam, then aroma, rising slow as a memory. You're handed a tiny cup, porcelain, no handle. The first pour is dark, opaque, thick with oils and ancient energy. You raise it, unsure what to expect. One sip, and then warmth, depth, not bitterness, but richness, like soil after rain, like bark in bloom, like something alive. The flavors aren't separate. They move together. A little ginger, maybe cardamom, maybe not. Maybe it's just the smoke clinging to your lips. You exhale slowly. Welcome, someone says. Now you've had everything. You smile. Not quite, but close. The second round is poured. Less strong, more social. A time for stories. Someone tells one now, half joking, about a goat that got addicted to coffee and started raiding the monastery. No one corrects him. Truth is bendable around a fire like this. Someone else brings out a tray of snacks. Kolo, roasted barley mixed with chickpeas, and maybe a few peanuts if you're lucky. Crunchy, salty, the kind of thing you'd mindlessly eat a gallon of while pretending to be polite. You nibble, you sip, you listen. The third round of coffee is called Barika, the blessing cup. This one's lighter, more symbolic. By now the fire's low. The stars are blazing like they've been practicing for this moment all day. A dog yawns. Someone hums the tune from earlier, slower this time, stretched out like sleep. Historians still debate the spiritual role of this third cup. Some see it as a final offering to the ancestors. Others say it simply marks the moment when guests must begin to say goodbye. You cradle your cup and decide both feel true. A few embers snap in protest as a cool wind brushes through the gathering. Blankets are pulled tighter. Shoulders scoot closer. No one quite wants to leave. You get it. The woman who brewed the coffee takes her seat again. Not as the server now, but as part of the circle. Someone hands her a cup. It's a small thing, but you feel the meaning in it. The feast ends the way it began, with hands extended, something warm being offered. The goat from earlier returns, this time with a bit of banana peel hanging from his mouth like a trophy. A child chases him lazily, neither trying too hard. They both know who's really in charge. You lean back, feeling the weight of it all. The sour tang of injera still lingering on your lips, the electric jolt of berbera dancing on your tongue, the richness of doro what curling in your belly, and now, the gentle echo of coffee settling in your bones. And still, you are not rushed. Nothing here is rushed. You don't look at the time. You don't need to. The moon is high. The fire is low. The coffee's done. You're not asleep, but you're somewhere near it. That sweet, golden edge between memory and dream. You wake, though you never really slept, to the sound of metal against stone. A slow, scraping rhythm, like someone sharpening a thought. It's still dark, but the fire's been gently stoked. The glow is back, not blazing, just pulsing. Around you, most people still sit or lie where they were, wrapped in shawls, leaned on each other's shoulders, faces soft with that post-feast quiet that feels deeper than sleep. But near the edge of the circle, someone is cooking again. You blink, confused. Surely they're not. Yes. Yes, they are. Breakfast. You barely finished digesting history. And now here comes morning with a frying pan. The woman working is humming. Not a song you recognize. Not loud. It's the kind of tune you hum when your hands know what to do before your brain catches up. She's roasting something in a pan over low flame. Small, flat patties sizzling gently in oil fragrant with onions and spice. You catch the scent, garlic, cumin, something nutty. Kimchi, or maybe a version of it. Cracked wheat porridge that's been fried into small cakes. Crisp on the outside, soft on the inside. A farmer's food, a traveler's delight. Someone nearby murmurs, if you can still eat, you're still alive. You take that as permission. The cakes are passed around on a palm leaf tray. Warm, golden, delicate. You pinch one and bite. Crunch, then softness. It tastes like the sun if the sun had a texture. Hearty, grounding, gentle on the throat. A hint of spice, but barely. Just enough to remind you you're not dreaming. Someone adds a dollop of yogurt to your leaf. It's thick, tart, alive with the tang of clay pots and goat's milk. You dip another bite and smile. Your mouth says thank you. Your stomach sends up a white flag. Historians still debate whether breakfast during the 12th century Ethiopian feast was a formal continuation or an unspoken afterglow. Some records suggest entire villages would remain together through the night, only to resume eating again at dawn. Others think it was simply an act of hospitality extended to those who traveled from afar and refused to leave too soon. You at this point are guilty of both. Nearby, a boy pokes at the coals with a stick. He's humming too, matching the woman's melody in a crooked harmony that works despite itself. A toddler chews noisily on a strip of dried fruit, eyes half closed, head resting on someone's lap. You sip water from a carved gourd past your way. Cool, slightly sweet. Maybe it sat overnight in leaves. Maybe it's blessed. Either way, it feels like your throat just got a kiss. And now, of course, more bread. But this time it's different. Thicker, griddle-browned, less sponge, more bite. Somewhere between a pancake and a memory. A woman near you calls it chechebsa, torn into pieces and tossed with spiced butter and berbera. Because of course even breakfast here comes with a little fire. She serves it with a wink. For waking up your sins. You chew. It's spicy, but not in the chaotic way of a dinner stew. This is a quiet fire, the kind that warms your back while you face the day. Someone jokes, if the coffee doesn't work, chechebsa will. Another offers honey for dipping. Why not? The sweetness is golden, floral, and unexpectedly complex, like it was collected from bees that read poetry. The goat returns. Again. This time, he's licking someone's discarded injera bowl like a thief who stopped trying to hide it. No one stops him. One child hands him a piece of chechebsa. The goat declines, wisely. The people around you start to stir with more purpose now. Some stretch. Others braid hair. Someone sharpens a knife. Not menacing, just practical. A quiet preparation for whatever the day decides to become. And you sit back and marvel at the strange, holy normalcy of it all. No one rushes to clean. There is no flurry of plastic bags or disposable cups. No groaning about dishes. What remains is absorbed by earth, by hands, by fire. Ashes stirred back into the soil. Food folded back into life. You learn that breakfast, here, isn't just the next meal. It's a way of resetting the story. A way of saying, yes, that happened. And now we go on. Historians still debate the ceremonial purpose of shared morning meals after feasts. Were they a form of collective reflection? A chance for disputes to be settled or alliances to be affirmed? Or were they simply what happens when humans, having filled themselves with food and fire and story, wake up still needing a little more? You sit with your third piece of chechepsa and decide it doesn't matter. Someone across the fire claps their hands once, sharp, bright, final. And just like that, people begin to rise. Slowly, naturally, like trees stretching toward the first warmth of the sun. The feast is truly ending now. You feel it in your knees as you stand, in your spine as you twist, in your heart as it gives a small, reluctant thud. A woman brushes crumbs from your sleeve and hands you one last bite of fried wheat. For the road, she says, even though no one knows which road you're on. You look around. Ashes in the fire. Empty bowls. Children sleeping against their mothers' backs. The goat, now lying flat with his belly full and his dignity low. And you, the guest, no longer feel like one. You're just someone who showed up hungry and stayed. The feast has ended, or so it claims. But like all good things in this world, especially those involving food, warmth, and stories under stars, it doesn't leave cleanly. It lingers. You're walking now, slowly, not away exactly, just around, stretching your legs, finding your balance after a night spent sitting cross-legged like a well-fed pretzel. The dawn isn't full yet, but the edge of the sky is softening to a dusty lavender, like someone smudged the night with a damp cloth. You drift past sleeping forms, still wrapped in cloaks and shawls. A pair of elders mutter quietly over the embers, sipping from shared gourd. Someone's rooster is announcing himself early and being roundly ignored by a nearby donkey, who may or may not be trying to sit down. Then you hear it, a slow clink, a scrape, the unmistakable rhythm of preparation. Again, you follow the sound and come upon three women seated around wide, low baskets. They're cracking something, nuts maybe, no seeds. Sunflower? No flax. The scent gives it away, nutty, oily, with the faintest whisper of bitter. Roasted flaxseed, or telba, the kind you grind, mix with water, and drink to clean the body. After all that goat, stew, coffee, and mysterious crunchy bits, your digestive tract is probably in need of some spiritual counseling. They offer you a small clay cup. You take a sip. It's cool, earthy, vaguely like drinking creamy stone. Not unpleasant, just honest. It doesn't try to impress you. It just says, I'm here to help. One of the women chuckles. It clears the road for more food. You raise your cup in salute. And I was almost free. They cackle like witches who've tricked a knight. Historians still debate the ceremonial use of telba. Was it a sacred digestive? A ritual cleanser? Or just an excuse to prolong company? Given the twinkle in these women's eyes, you'd bet on all three. While sipping your flax potion, you notice a shallow tray piled high with greenish-white grains. Teff again, this time unround. One of the women sifts it slowly through her fingers, examining each tiny speck like it holds a secret. Maybe it does. She says almost absently, you know the best teff grows where no one is watching. You nod like you understand. You don't, but it sounds true. There's something meditative about this moment. No performance, no feast, no fire-crackling drama. Just three women, a dawn sky, a tray of seeds, and a guest still lingering at the edge of belonging. You sit. They let you. You help. Well, you try. Your fingers are clumsy. The grains are impossibly small. One of the women leans over, gently redirects your hand, and mutters like this. Then she gives you a look that says, it's okay. You weren't raised for this. You smile, because you weren't. And yet, here you are. Someone calls from across the way. A young man with a woolen shawl tossed over one shoulder, hair braided into careful rows, motioning toward a nearby hut. You follow, because that's what you do now. You follow the rhythm of things. Inside the hut, the scent changes again, clay, hay, old smoke, and something sweeter underneath. You duck slightly to enter and find an old woman tending a pot balanced over a small internal fire. The walls are blackened with smoke. The air is warm, close, humming with years of use. She doesn't speak. She just gestures to the pot. You peer in. Milk, or something like milk, simmering slow, thickening into something between yogurt and mystery. She stirs it with a carved stick. It smells comforting. Milky, grassy, rich with animal and earth. She adds something from a pouch. You catch a hint of fenugreek, a twist of salt, a single leaf of something unidentifiable. The mixture bubbles gently. Not a boil, just a series of thoughtful sighs. You're handed a cup. Again, this one's warm, rich, slightly sour, but rounded by the herbs. It's the kind of drink that says, you'll be okay now. You drink it slowly. This is breakfast's encore, a quiet final act, a pause before departure. Historians still debate what role dairy played in daily meals of 12th century Ethiopia. Some say it was seasonal, used only when herds flourished. Others argue that these slow-cooked milks and fermented creams were common, even sacred, tied to lunar cycles and fertility rites. You consider telling them that today it simply feels like a hug. You leave the hut. Back outside, the sky is lighter. Pink, then peach, then gold, stretched long across the hills. Birds dart overhead. A child chases another with a stick, laughing too loudly for this early hour. Someone is already gathering wood for the next meal. You notice that no one says goodbye. Not formally. They just shift. Toward chores. Toward work. Toward rhythm. As if to say the feast doesn't end. It just becomes life again. You find your pack, brush a few stray crumbs from your cloak, and tie the straps slowly. The goat watches you from a safe distance. You nod. Thanks for letting me stay, you whisper. He chews. Fair enough. You walk a few paces, then stop. You turn and look one last time. The circle of stones around the fire is still there. The air still smells faintly of berbera and with smoke. Someone laughs. Someone sings. Someone yawns. It is in every possible way a new day. But you're not the same guest who arrived. You follow a narrow path now, half-beaten through grass and dusty soil, your sandals sinking slightly with each step. The morning sun is finally up, brushing everything in gold, like it's trying to apologize for how hot it'll get later. Behind you, the sound of the feast fade, not gone, but softened, like music heard through a wall. In front of you, hills, green where the dew still lingers, brown where the hooves of donkeys and goats have made their case. You walk slowly, not quite sure where you're going. But then again, after last night, the question isn't where, it's why. And the answer is, you're still hungry. Not for food. Not really. Well, maybe a little, but more for understanding. For context. For the flavors that don't come on a plate. You're joined by a young man with a crooked grin and a staff carved with notches. You want to see the Injera rocks? He asks, as if it's the most natural thing in the world. You nod, obviously. The trail narrows. You walk in silence for a while, the way two people do when they've only just met but already know they'll share something worth remembering. He whistles a soft tune that sounds like water falling uphill. After some time, you reach a small clearing. In the center, a flat, black stone, wide as a dinner table and smooth as glass. There are scorch marks on one end and a worn groove near the edge. He taps it with his staff. Old Injera pan, he says. Before metal. Before fire was fire. You blink. Before fire was fire? He shrugs. That's what my grandmother says. You know, like it makes sense? Because in a way it does. He tells you this rock once fed an entire village. That when food was scarce, the elder women would come here, bring the last of the teff, and heat it with dried twigs and whatever blessings they could mumble. The bread they made was thinner than smoke, but it fed people. It always did. You run your hand along the stone. It's cool now, silent, but you swear you feel a heartbeat in it. A pulse of something old and full of starch. Historians still debate the origins of injera. Some say it's millennia old, a gift from ancient gods disguised as fermented batter. Others claim it came from trade routes, brought in clay jugs by people who knew more than they told. But here, the answer is simple. It came from here, your guide says. Like rain. He picks up a dry twig and draws a spiral on the stone. This is how the batter is poured. Spiral first, then let it breathe. You watch, mesmerized. You don't want to interrupt. You just want to remember. Then he stands, brushing dust from his cloak. Come, he says. There's something sweeter to see. You hike a bit farther, the sun now fully awake, warming the top of your head like a stern but affectionate father. You pass terraced fields, green stripes on the hillside, each one carefully stacked, watered by narrow canals that gurgle like babies. Eventually, you reach another flat area. Bees hum. A cluster of beehives, low and round, sit under a tree. They look like pottery, shaped with care. A woman in a thick shawl sits nearby, her hands sticky with honey and thyme. She smiles as you approach, as if she's been waiting for you all morning. She scoops a bit of honey from a hollowed gourd and offers it without words. You dip your finger in. Taste. It's warm, bright, sharp at first, then mellow. It tastes like everything you've seen. Like fire, like stone, like patience. This is Tasma honey, she says, made from flowers that only open at dawn. Only once. You look around. Tiny blue blossoms at the grass. You didn't even notice them on the way in. She adds, some say if you eat enough of this, your dreams get remembered by the bees. You nod solemnly. You have no idea what that means, but you're ready to believe anything now. Historians still debate whether honey was a staple in 12th century diets or reserved only for ritual and royalty. Some argue that its scarcity made it sacred. Others claim entire families traded nothing but honey for grain, tools, even land. Here it's both. It's food and myth, breakfast and blessing. The woman shows you a piece of comb, pale gold, nearly translucent. You take a bite. It crunches slightly, then melts into something that reminds you of childhood. Even if your childhood never had this much sugar. A bee lands on your sleeve. Just rest there. You stare at it. It doesn't sting. It just is. Later, you sit in the shade with the woman and your guide. No one speaks much. You don't need to. You eat honey straight from the comb and listen to the bees talk about flowers. The sweetness stays in your mouth long after the bite is gone, like the memory of a song you only heard once. You begin to understand something deeper now. The feast, the one you thought was finished, isn't about sitting at a fire or passing bowls. It's about all of this. The rock, the fields, the bees, the slow unraveling of place. It's about connection, continuity, and taste, yes, but not just taste. You walk back down the hill, slowly. The sun is higher. The wind has warmed. Your lips are sticky with honey. Your brain is thick with knowing. And somewhere inside, you're still hungry. But now you know why. You're not walking anymore. You're wandering. The difference is subtle, but you feel it. Walking has a direction. Wandering has a rhythm. One is about getting somewhere. The other is about letting somewhere get to you. Your sandals crunch over gravel as you meander through a small orchard. Not the lush, carefully pruned kind you might find on a postcard, but the sort of place trees grow because someone planted them and then mostly left them alone. Tough, stubborn trees. Their branches knotted like old fingers. Their fruit small, tart, and tenacious. A woman waves you over. She's crouched beneath a fig tree, sorting through a basket of green pods. She offers one, split open to reveal pale seeds wrapped in bitter flesh. You taste it. It's sour. So sour, in fact, that your entire jaw decides to retreat inward. You blink rapidly as she cackles in delight. Gesho, she says, clapping her hands. Wake up tea. You cough a little, your tongue somewhere between betrayal and curiosity. This, you learn, is the bitter plant that flavors tella, a traditional Ethiopian beer. Not sweet, not light, not anything you find on tap. It's brewed in clay pots, fermented with care, and used more for ceremony and storytelling than for slurred conversations. Your guide from earlier reappears, holding a large gourd covered with woven reeds. "Want to taste something strange?" he asks. By now, you know the answer is always yes. He uncorks it. The scent is complex. Fermented grain, a bit of smoke, a whisper of something that might have been a fruit once, but decided to become philosophy instead. You sip, carefully. It's earthy, sour, slightly fizzy, somehow thick and thin at the same time. It tastes like something brewed during a thunderstorm and left to dream for a week. Historians still debate whether 12th century Tella was brewed for celebration or for sustenance. Was it a spiritual libation, a peasant's protein, or just a way to make water a little more interesting? Likely all three. No one here sees the need to separate categories that were always meant to overlap. The gourd makes its way around the circle, because of course there's a circle again. A few farmers, an old woman with eyes like tree bark, a boy picking his teeth with a sliver of wood. You're one of them now. No introductions needed. The drink is enough. As the Tella warms your belly, someone pulls out a bundle wrapped in linen. Inside, dried meat. Quanta. Chewy, smoky, aggressively seasoned. It fights you a little, but in a loving way, like an ant who hugs too hard. You chew for a while and feel something in your jaw pop into alignment. It's satisfying in that ancient way. Preserved food made not for pleasure, but for survival. And yet, there's pleasure anyway. The woman with the fig pods explains how it's dried in the wind, sometimes smoked over eucalyptus, then rolled in oil and berbera. Not to be fancy, just to keep the flies off. But it adds a flavor that feels like inheritance. You lean back, chewing slowly, the Tella sitting calmly beside it. Around you, conversation drifts in and out like smoke. No one is in a hurry. You hear about someone's mule that can predict rain. A neighbor whose child was born during an eclipse and now refuses to sleep at night. A legend about a priest who once turned butter into beeswax to trick a rival monastery. No one questions any of it. You catch yourself smiling for no reason. And then, music. Not loud, not formal. Just two boys with one instrument between them. A crar, a lyre-shaped stringed creature that hums when plucked. One boy plays, the other taps the wooden frame in rhythm. A woman begins to sing, her voice climbing through the branches like it's trying to coax the sun back down. You don't know the words, but they land anyway. Later, someone passes you a clay bowl of something sludgy and green. You hesitate. The group watches. It's siljo, someone says. Fermented fava bean paste. You dip your finger in. Earthy, tangy, slightly gritty. The kind of thing that tastes like it grew up with hardship but found religion. You take another bite. The goat arrives. Yes, that goat. This time he's not even pretending to be shy. He saunters over and plants himself next to you, chewing on something he didn't ask permission for. You scratch behind his ear. He accepts this as tribute. You lean back, the sun soft on your face, the crar still murmuring nearby. Tella in your belly, quanta in your teeth. The taste of siljo clinging to the corners of your mouth like an unfinished sentence. You look around, and here's what you realize. This is still the feast. It never ended. It just one or two. It became a drink, a story, a stretch of music on a hill under fruit trees. A stubborn goat and a stranger with a clay gourd and a sly grin. The meal is not a moment. It's a landscape, and you are walking through it, one flavor at a time. The wind changes. Not dramatically. No sudden gusts or swirling dust. Just a slow shift in temperature and scent. You feel it first on your cheek, cooler, drier, touched with altitude. Then, in the air, eucalyptus with smoke and the faint mineral breath of stone that's seen 1,000 rains. Your guide nods toward the hills. We go higher now. You nod, like you were expecting this. Like elevation is just another course in the long, slow meal of this place. The path twists upward. Not steep, exactly, but insistent. Your legs protest mildly. Your stomach reminds you that you've eaten enough today to survive a minor siege. But still you walk. Soon trees thin out. The ground grows rocky. The grass is short here, cropped close by animals you don't see, but occasionally smell. A hawk calls overhead, piercing and quick, then disappears like punctuation. You crest a small ridge and stop. Laid before you is a church. Ancient, hewn from red volcanic rock. Not built on the ground, but from it. Carved down into the earth, its roof level with your feet. A perfect cross, chiseled deep into stone, its edges smoothed by time and prayer. You've seen pictures of places like this. Lalibela, maybe. The rock-hewn churches of Ethiopia, born not from ambition, but from devotion and perhaps a bit of divine stubbornness. 12th century, your guide whispers, as if afraid the church might wake. Historians don't debate the date. Lalibela's churches are well documented, but they argue over the how. How did artisans carve an entire cathedral from living rock without modern tools? How did they hollow it out, decorate it, bless it, and fill it with chants that still echo 800 years later? Some say angels helped. Others say slaves. The truth probably lives somewhere between miracle and backache. You descend stone steps into cool shadow. The air changes again, colder now, tinged with frankincense. Inside the church, the quiet is dense. Not silence, quiet. A sound made of no sound. The priest appears without warning. Wrapped in layers of white cloth, face soft with age, eyes sharper than mountain wind. He doesn't speak. He just nods and motions you in. You remove your sandals. Inside, it's darker than dark. The walls close around you, not claustrophobic but protective, like walking into the hollow of a tree or the memory of a lullaby. The priest shows you an altar draped in embroidered cloth. He lifts a corner to reveal a cross, simple, carved, smooth from centuries of hands. You don't touch it, but you feel it, right in your chest. He murmurs a prayer. You recognize no words, but your skin prickles all the same. Then he gestures again, this time to a side alcove. There on a low stone shelf sits a bowl. Inside, barley, raw, uncooked, mixed with a few sprigs of some wild herb. At first, it seems out of place. What's a cereal doing in a sanctuary? But the priest sees your confusion and speaks softly. Offering, he says, food for the saints. You nod. Of course, even spirits need to eat. Historians still debate the blending of sacred and culinary in Ethiopia's medieval period. Some believe food left in churches was symbolic, ritual sustenance for divine beings. Others claim it was practical. Monks leaving barley and honey to ferment for communal use, or as an early form of tithing. You suspect it's both. On your way out, the priest presses something into your hand. A dried figure, wrinkled, sweet, humble. Travel well, he says in perfect English, then vanishes into shadow. You blink, just once. Outside, the light blinds you. It's mid-morning now, and the sun has stopped being polite. You blink until shapes return. Your guide is waiting. He points to a narrow trail that winds along the cliff. This way. You follow, crunching dried fig between your teeth, the seeds popping like punctuation. The trail narrows further until the only thing beside you is air. Far below, a river curls like a lazy snake. You pretend not to notice how close your foot is to oblivion. Eventually, the trail widens again into a small stone courtyard. At the far end, a woman sits beside a fire, stirring a pot with a long-handled spoon carved from what looks like horn. The scent reaches you before the sight does. Lentils, onions, cumin, garlic, kikwat, red lentil stew, simmered to softness, made not for celebration, but for endurance, for fasting days, for long journeys, for hungry guests. She ladles some into a shallow clay bowl and sets it on a flat rock. No spoon, no fork, just another folded piece of injera, fresh and warm. You sit, you eat, and the taste? It's humble, gentle, savory, with a whisper of heat. The lentils break apart on your tongue, like stories too long untold. No oil, no meat, just plants, salt, and intention. You think about the barley in the church. You think about the honey from a hill. You think about the fig in your hand, and you begin to see the pattern. This is not a place where meals are separate from spirit. Here, food is prayer. Digestion is devotion. Even hunger feels sacred. You finish the bowl and thank the woman. She doesn't answer, but she smiles like she's heard it before. The wind returns, tugging gently at your sleeve. It smells again of eucalyptus and stone. But now, there's something more. Something like clarity. You descend slowly now, your legs no longer quite as sure as they were an hour ago. The path weaves downward through dry grass and loose gravel, past flat stones that seem to hum with stored heat. A goat bell rings somewhere in the distance, faint, rhythmic, like a forgotten metronome. You pass a boy carrying a bundle of firewood on his back. He nods once, solemnly, like you're both in on a joke the rest of the world isn't ready for. You're not sure what the joke is, but you smile anyway. And then, out of nowhere, comes laughter. It bubbles up from below, echoed by the stone walls of a narrow ravine. You follow the sound, drawn like a bee to a flower, and soon find yourself at the edge of a small settlement. Round huts with thatched roofs, woven fences, smoke drifting lazily from chimneys that look more like storybook hats than architecture. Children dash past you, barefoot and wild-eyed, their shirts smeared with something sticky and suspiciously red. One skids to a stop beside you and grins. "Tylo," he shouts, then vanishes into a cloud of giggles. You turn a corner, and there it is. A feast of sorts, though not the grand, sprawling kind from earlier. This is smaller, messier, louder. Women squat around large bowls of dough, rolling small orbs between their palms. A low fire crackles beneath a flat iron plate, but it's not for injera this time. Instead, they're heating flour, spices, and water into thick paste. Others are forming balls from barley flour, mixing them with a spiced butter sauce, then skewering them with long, slim sticks. This is Tylo, a dish rumored to have originated in northern Ethiopia, and one that turns mealtime into a full contact sport. You're handed a stick. Instinctively, you use it to jab at one of the dough balls. You try to be elegant. You fail. It slips, rolls, smears, and finally launches itself across the bowl into a waiting lap. There is a moment of silence. Then the entire group erupts in laughter. Welcome to the game. Historians still debate the cultural role of Tylo. Was it invented as a bonding ritual for newlyweds? A social test? A culinary accident turned inside joke? Some suggest its origin lies in practicality. Quick food made fun to keep everyone awake through long evenings. Others insist it's a dish reserved for clever hands and patient hearts. You make another attempt. This time, your stick hooks a dough ball like a fish. You lift it triumphantly. Cheers erupt. You dip it into the spice sauce, pop in your mouth, and oh, it's unexpectedly delicious. The texture is chewy but pleasant. The barley has a roasted depth, and the sauce hits you with waves of flavor. Berbera heat, smoky oil, a hint of garlic, and something vaguely nutty. It's like comfort food dressed up for a party it never wanted to attend. Someone challenges you to a duel. Not with words, with eyebrows. You nod. The rules are unclear, but apparently, speed and precision matter. The two of you jab at the bowl in a flurry of motion that ends with you winning one, losing two, and sending a third ball bouncing into the ashes. The crowd gasps. The goat arrives. You don't even react anymore. He eyes the fallen dough ball, sniffs, and walks away, unimpressed. Someone brings out a small clay pot filled with tej, Ethiopian honey wine. It's golden, slightly cloudy, and smells like the kind of bad decision you'd make on a dare, and then romanticize for the rest of your life. You're handed a cup. You sip. It's sweet, but with a kick. Like liquid sunshine that's been fermenting with opinions. It warms your throat, fogs your head, just enough to make you wonder if you've been dreaming this entire time. You lean back against a hut wall and watch as the game continues. Tylo balls fly. Sticks jab. Laughter rises. You take another sip. The sun dips lower. Shadows stretch. And you realize something. This isn't just a meal. It's theater. It's play. It's a reminder that eating doesn't have to be solemn to be sacred. Here, joy is part of the recipe. Historians still debate whether joy has nutritional value. Some say no. Science prefers proteins and vitamins. Others argue that laughter lowers stress hormones, improves digestion, and makes everything taste better. You're firmly with the latter camp. Someone passes you more tej. The fire crackles. A woman begins to hum a tune that sounds familiar, though you're sure you've never heard it before. Maybe you dreamed it earlier. Maybe the goat wrote it. You take another bite of Tylo, this one perfectly coated in sauce. You didn't think you were hungry. Turns out, you were wrong. Again, evening is stretching its arms now. Fingers of shadow reaching gently across the village, tracing rooftops, kissing the dust. You sit in the lull between laughter and quiet, somewhere after the last Tylo ball and before anyone remembers responsibilities exist. The tej in your cup has turned sticky on the rim. You don't mind. You swirl it lazily, watching the golden liquid catch the firelight like a tired sun. Across from you, the woman who hummed earlier is now braiding a child's hair with slow, methodical grace. The boy is nearly asleep in her lap, eyelids fluttering like flags in low wind. A soft conversation bubbles up nearby. Two old men debating of all things cheese. Not the gooey kind that stretches off pizza slices like commercial dreams. No, this is Ayib, a crumbly, tangy white cheese, lightly salted and often mixed with herbs or spices. You catch phrases like only with garlic and never on fasting days unless it's a Tuesday moon, which might be metaphor or just deeply local logic. They're arguing over texture now, whether it should be soft like new clay or dry like shepherd's patience. You smile to yourself. You've stumbled into a culinary philosophy debate disguised as gossip. One of them sees you smiling. You like cheese? He asks, like it's a test of character. You nod carefully. Come, he says, rising with surprising agility. Let me show you real Ayib. You follow him past huts and fences woven from dry reeds, into a small, cool room with walls the color of old milk. Inside, it smells faintly of animal, salt, and something sharp enough to be pried. He opens a woven basket and pulls out a shallow clay dish. Inside, Ayib, crumbly, snow-white, dotted with specks of green, kozret, he says, a local herb that smells vaguely of oregano if oregano had spent time in seminary school. You taste it. Cool, tangy, dry, but in a good way. The way a desert wind can still feel like a hug. The old man watches you closely. Now you understand, he says, nodding like you've been inducted into something serious. He pulls out another dish. This one's red. It's mitmita, a fierce firecracker spice blend of ground bird's eye chili, cardamom, salt, and a faint whisper of mustard seed. You sprinkle a bit onto your next bite of cheese. Your sinuses attempt to evacuate the premises. You try to play it cool. Fail. The old man howls with laughter. You are alive now. Historians still debate the use of dairy in early Ethiopian diets, especially among Christians observing fasting rituals that often forbid animal products. Some say it was reserved for post-fast celebrations. Others believe it was a staple, quietly tweaked to fit whatever rules were in place. But everyone agrees. It's been around forever, and nobody messes with the recipe lightly. Back outside, the air has shifted again. Cooler, more decisive. The kind of temperature that makes you pull your cloak tighter and sit a little closer to the fire. Someone's added eucalyptus branches. The smoke curls upward like script in a forgotten alphabet. A girl appears with a tray of small clay bowls. Inside each, a creamy white drink. Bulla, she says, made from inset, the false banana plant that isn't actually banana and definitely doesn't taste like one. The starchy pulp is scraped from the plant's core, fermented underground for weeks, then cooked into porridge or stirred into drinks like this. You sip. It's subtle, mildly sour, slightly gelatinous, with a smoothness that makes your tongue think it's being wrapped in linen. Not a taste bomb, more like a taste whisper. It feels nutritious, not in a vitamin label kind of way, but in the sense that your ancestors would nod approvingly if they saw you drinking it. Good for strength, the girl says. For travelers. She doesn't ask where you're going. She knows that's not the point. You lean back and exhale. The goat? Yes, him again. Ambles over and flops down beside you like he's claimed your aura. You scratch between his horns. He doesn't thank you. He never does. Someone begins singing. A low, wordless tune that weaves through the evening like a thread of wool. Another joins in, then another. Soon, the air is full of soft voices. Not a performance, just a shared breath set to melody. And the stars come out. Not all at once, but in pairs, then clusters, then constellations you've forgotten the names of. They're bright here, confident, like I don't need a telescope or an app to be understood. The goat snores beside you. The fire pops softly. Your stomach is full of barley and spice. Your head light with tej, your tongue tingling with mitmita, and your heart strange. Not heavy, not light, just present. This isn't how most meals end. But then again, this isn't most meals. This is something else. Something older. Something that knows the line between body and soul is mostly just a matter of seasoning. The fire has burned low, down to coals that glow like shy embers tucked beneath the ash. The air is quiet now, except for the occasional shuffle of feet and the soft, contented sigh of someone stretching before sleep. Even the goat has called it a night, curled into himself like a furry crescent moon. You should be sleeping too, but instead you rise. There's something pulling you, something left unseen, unsmelled, untasted. Your guide, somehow always appearing when you need him, meets you at the edge of the hut circle. You hold a lantern made from polished horn and lit with a stubby wick. The light inside flickers like a lazy firefly, barely enough to see by, but somehow it's all you need. We go to the smoke rooms, he says. Naturally, you follow. The path winds down into a hollow, past stone walls grown slick with moss and nighttime dew. The ground underfoot is soft, packed earth, trampled over centuries, scented with memory. You hear water trickling somewhere close. The sky above is ink black now, brushed with stars and the faint smear of the Milky Way. Eventually, you reach a long, low structure tucked against the slope. It doesn't look like much, a mud brick house with a roof weighed down by stones. But when he opens the door, you're hit with a scent that stops time. With smoke, charred garlic, a hint of meat so deeply cooked it has ceased to be meat and become simply flavor. This is where they make kurt, raw meat, cubed or sliced thin, sometimes tossed with spice butter, sometimes eaten straight, with mitmita and a ways on the side. But that's not all that happens here. This is also where smoked meats, called kanta or direct depending on region and method, are made, dried, and sometimes hung for months. Inside, the smoke clings to everything. The walls, the rafters, the silence. You duck low and enter. Hanging from wooden beams are strips of beef, goat, and, yes, possibly sheep, each piece dried into a deep mahogany ribbon, glistening slightly where fat is cooled. Some are coated in ash. Others are slick with oil and crushed herbs. You are in a shrine of preservation. A woman sits at a low bench, slicing meat with a blade so thin it could whisper. She gestures for you to sit. She doesn't say much, just hands you a piece of direct siga. It's chewy, smoky, sharp with age. You taste salt, iron, and the ghost of the fire that made it. She offers a side dish of a ways, a deep red paste made from berbera, mustard, and honey wine. You dip, taste again. Now it sings. Historians still debate the origin of meat preservation techniques in Ethiopia. Some point to ancient trade routes and the need to carry protein across long distances without spoilage. Others argue it was a wartime strategy, stockpiling food that could last through sieges and droughts. But everyone agrees, the flavor is not an accident. It is a map. Your guide takes a bite beside you. This meat remembers, he says. You believe him. He pulls a string of sausages from a hanging rack. Dullet, he explains, but not the fresh kind you had imagined. This version is dried, aged, rolled in pepper and stuffed with offal, rice, and herbs. He slices it thin, offers you a piece. It's intense, earthy, funky in a way that makes your eyebrows lift and your taste buds wake up like someone threw cold water on them. You chew thoughtfully. This isn't casual food. This is food with intention. Food that speaks in riddles. And again, you are reminded, this feast is not for performance. It is survival made beautiful. You ask if they eat this daily. The woman smiles faintly. Only when the moon is generous. Outside, an owl calls once. The fire crackles. Time slows. Someone brings in a small clay pot and uncovers it with reverence. Inside, something white and slick. Niter kibi, clarified butter infused with spices. The scent rises. Fenugreek, coriander, cinnamon, garlic. The holy choir of flavor. Your guide dips a piece of dried meat in the butter, then rolls it in crushed berbera. For warriors, he says, and guests, you eat. It's like biting into history. If history wore velvet gloves and carried a dagger. Historians still debate how much meat was available to common folk in 12th century Ethiopia. Some claim it was rare, reserved for nobility, warriors, or major holidays. Others point to herding culture and argue it was more common than we think. But here in this smokehouse, the debate is irrelevant. The answer is hanging from the beams, spiced with memory. You leave the room later than you should. Mouth tingling, stomach both full and yearning. Smoke clings to your cloak, your hair, your thoughts. Outside, the sky has changed again, thick with stars, bright enough to make shadows. You walk back in silence, your guide beside you, the goat now trailing you like a reluctant bodyguard. And somewhere between the meat and the stars, you realize, this isn't just a meal. It's a conversation between past and present, between hunger and generosity, between fire and tongue. You exhale slowly, the taste of berbera still buzzing on your lips. And you know, you're still feasting. You wake to the sound of bells. Not loud, not jarring, just soft metal tapping like wind chimes that forgot how to be annoying. You open your eyes to morning light pouring through a weave of reeds and cloth. The hut you fell asleep in smells of smoke, old straw, and something subtly sweet. Maybe the ghost of last night's tej. The goat is gone. You're strangely disappointed. Outside, the world is waking up slowly. Chickens mutter to themselves. A rooster calls, too late to be useful, but early enough to be smug. The villagers move with sleepy efficiency, fanning fires, fetching water, scolding children who pretend not to hear. You step outside, stretch, and blink against the light. The hills are bathed in gold. It's a new day, but the feast, your strange, winding, endlessly layered feast, continues. Your guide greets you with a flat piece of injera wrapped around something warm and fragrant. Fur, he says. Ah, breakfast. You tear off a piece. The injera has soaked up a rich, red sauce. The texture is hearty, tangled with bits of onion, pepper, and just a whisper of meat. It's messy, spicy, comforting. The sort of thing that wakes you up better than coffee ever could. Fur is often made with leftover injera. Torn, sautéed, spiced, and reborn. A second life. A breakfast of resilience. You eat sitting on a log, sun on your shoulders, flies circling politely but staying just out of slap range. A child offers you a bowl of shai, black tea brewed strong, laced with cinnamon and clove. Sweetened, of course. You sip. It tastes like childhood stories and long mornings. Today, your guide says, we go to the lowlands. You blink. You didn't know there was more. There's always more, he adds, grinning. And so, you begin again. The descent is longer this time. The air grows warmer, thicker. The vegetation shifts subtly. More shrubs, fewer trees. A pair of hawks circle overhead like they're considering starting a religion based on thermals. You pass small farms. Each plot an ecosystem unto itself. Rows of maize, teff, and something broadleaf you can't name. Scarecrows wear clothes better than yours. Donkeys bray in protest at the morning sun. Eventually, you arrive at a cluster of homes built near stream. Children splash in the shallows. Women scrub pots with river sand and laughter. You're ushered toward a cooking area shaded by banana leaves. A woman is grinding something between two stones. Rhythmic, hypnotic. You watch the motion for a while before asking what it is. Shiro, she replies, not looking up. Ground chickpeas or broad beans, spiced and roasted, then cooked into a thick, rich stew. A comfort food, a staple, a masterpiece pretending to be humble. She ladles a portion into a shallow dish and hands you more injera. You tear, scoop, eat, and then pause. Because this Shiro is extraordinary. Nutty, velvety, spiced just enough to tingle but not shout. The kind of flavor that makes you want to write a thank you note to a plant. Historians still debate the age of Shiro. Some say it's ancient, a peasant food born of necessity. Others argue it was a monastic creation, vegetarian, filling, and suitable for the endless cycle of fast days. Whatever the case, it is undeniably the kind of dish that defines a cuisine not by extravagance, but by soul. You eat slowly, savoring each bite. The woman watches you and finally smiles. "Good?" she asks, already knowing the answer. You nod, mouth too full to reply in words. Children gather around, curious. One offers you a green fruit, small, oval tart. You bite into it, and your face does something involuntary. They burst out laughing. It's like they were waiting for exactly that reaction. You sit with them a while, showing them how to make shadow animals with your hands. They teach you one that looks like a chicken with anger issues. You pretend yours is better. It's not. Eventually, the elder of the household invites you to try another dish, jinfo. It's made of barley flour, stirred into a thick, elastic porridge. She serves in a bowl with a deep crater in the center, filled with niter kibi and berbera. You're supposed to scoop the edges and dip into the molten middle like a lava-loving child. You try it. It's warm, heavy, nourishing. The texture is a bit like Play-Doh, but if Play-Doh had ambitions. The flavor is bold, pure grain, spice, and warmth. The elder nods approvingly. "Now you eat like a man," she says. You consider whether she means that metaphorically or as a gentle insult to your previous Shiro enthusiasm. Either way, you take it as a win. As the sun rises higher, the villagers begin preparations for something. There's a buzz in the air, a gathering of focus. Your guide leans in. "There's a wedding today." "Of course there is. And yes, you're invited. Not because you're special, but because everyone is." You look down at your dusty cloak, your hands stained with berbera, your stomach full of fur, shiro, jinfo, and possibly several illegal fruits. You nod. You're ready. After all, the feast never really ends. It just keeps changing clothes. Weddings, you quickly learn, are less about the couple and more about the village proving it knows how to celebrate survival. You're not entirely sure who's getting married. You're introduced to a groom, possibly named Tedesz, who's wearing a fresh white tunic and has the expression of a man who just realized there's no escape. The bride, at least you think it's the bride, is surrounded by older women who are simultaneously braiding her hair, singing to her, and scolding the flower girl for sitting down. The air is thick with movement. Children weave in and out of the crowd with the gravity of diplomats. Goats bleat in complaint over the commotion. Somewhere a rooster is being chased for reasons you decide not to ask about. Your guide, as always, finds you before confusion sets in. "Stay close," he says. "This part gets delicious." You obey. Around a large, flat clearing, pots the size of bathtubs are bubbling over open fires. The scent makes your knees wobble. Garlic, ginger, and spice swirling in steam clouds thick enough to sculpt. Women move between fires with ladles, baskets, and unspoken choreography. It's chaos, yes, but it's practiced chaos. A boy hands you a wooden bowl. You look down. It's dorowat, the dish of kings, the heavyweight champion of Ethiopian cuisine. Chunks of chicken, slow-cooked in a deep red sauce made from berbera, niter kibi, and what you can only assume is sorcery. A hard-boiled egg rests in the bowl, like a pearl in a volcano. You scoop with injera and take a bite, then immediately pause. It's hot, not just spicy alive, the kind of flavor that builds from a whisper to a shout, then settles into a song. You close your eyes. The texture is thick, the meat falling apart with the gentlest nudge. The egg, soaked in the sauce, has transcended its chicken origins. Someone beside you mutters, "Ah, real Doro what?" Historians still debate the origins of Doro what. Some trace it to royal kitchens, others to religious feasts. There are strict traditions around its preparation. Only certain women can make it for holidays, and in some regions, it's taboo to prepare without blessings. Either way, it's never a casual Tuesday night dinner. You eat more, then more. Your lips burn, but you don't stop, because this is the kind of dish that makes you forget you have lips to begin with. Nearby, drums start. Soft at first, just a pulse. Then another joins in, and another. Soon, the courtyard pulses with rhythm. Someone begins clapping. Then a woman ululates, a high, trilling call that pierces the morning like sunlight through smoke. The bride appears, now fully adorned, her hair braided with beads, her wrists wrapped in thin brass coils. She looks serene, not overwhelmed, anchored. The groom still looks mildly terrified. They sit beneath a shaded canopy while elders speak in low tones. Stories, maybe, blessings, instructions on how not to burn the lentils. You can't tell, but the couple listens, nodding slowly, sipping from a shared gourd of tej like it holds the secrets of matrimony. You glance around. No one is watching silently. Everyone is involved, offering advice, food, laughter. The ceremony is a communal act. Marriage here isn't two people binding themselves together. It's everyone weaving a net and saying, "You're not doing this alone." A woman nudges you and hands over a piece of grilled meat on a wooden skewer, shekelatives. You take it. Tender lamb, sautéed with onions, green chilies, and just enough garlic to haunt your future dreams. There's no sauce, no flourish, just heat, fat, and fire. You bite in. The crust crunches. The inside melts. It tastes like honesty. She nods in approval. "This is for strength," she says. Marriage food. You wonder if that's a warning. You're handed more. Lentils, spiced potatoes, a small amount of collard greens stewed with onion and garlic. Gomen. Each dish has its place. Each flavor balances another. It's a slow crescendo. Not a meal. A movement. You drift from bowl to bowl. Conversation to conversation. Someone teaches you a wedding chant. You repeat it poorly. They laugh and repeat it louder. Eventually, you chant it well enough to not embarrass the goat. Yes, he's back, wearing a necklace made of straw and what looks suspiciously like garlic. He's either an honored guest or the next course. You choose not to ask. The couple rises, now joined. No kiss, no bump. Just hands clasped and a shared glance. So ancient, it could have been borrowed from a cave wall. A round of kolo is passed. Roasted barley mixed with chickpeas and peanuts. Crunchy, simple, addictive. The unofficial snack of gatherings, weddings, and long conversations about weather patterns. You sit again, this time with a bowl of kolo and a fresh cup of chai. Around you, laughter carries like birdsong. And slowly, without noticing, you begin to relax in a new way. Not just full, held, by community, by spice, by stories told in food. The wedding fades into celebration. The bride and groom disappear into a sea of hugs and chants. You lean back on your elbows, the dust warm under your palms, the air rich with eucalyptus and charcoal. Somewhere nearby, someone starts singing. The same tune from the previous night. Only now, it feels like part of you already knows it. Later, as the sun drops behind the hills and stretches long orange streaks across the dirt, the celebration doesn't stop. It slows. Like a heartbeat after a sprint, it settles into rhythm. You find yourself sitting on a woven mat beside a small fire ringed with stones. Elders have gathered here, not part of the younger crowds dancing or the teasing games with kolo, but still present, still smiling. Their laughter is lower, slower, but no less sincere. One of them pats the ground beside him. You sit. A woman places a carved wooden tray in the center. On it, bowls of dark roasted coffee beans, small cups the size of eggshells, and a brazier already beginning to smoke. She fans the coals gently with a dried palm frond, coaxing them into life. The smell begins to rise, earthy, sweet, a touch of burning sugar. You are about to witness an ancient ritual, the Ethiopian coffee ceremony. She pours the greenish-black beans into a small pan and begins to roast them directly over the coals. The beans crack and pop as their skins blister, releasing smoke that coils into the air like incense. The aroma deepens, rich, almost chocolatey, the kind of scent that feels like a memory even if you've never lived it before. Someone passes around sprigs of fresh tinnatum, Ethiopian sacred basil. You crush it between your fingers and inhale. It clears your head in a way that's polite, like a gentle hand on your forehead. The woman leans in and fans the scent of the roasting beans toward the circle. This is part of it, aroma sharing. A gesture of hospitality, of welcome, of you are my home. You're mine now for this moment. You nod. It makes sense. She grinds the beans next, using a mortar and pestle made from horn and wood. The rhythm is steady, almost hypnotic. The ground coffee is then poured into a jabina, a traditional black clay pot with a long spout and a round belly. She adds water, nestles the pot into the coals, and waits. Historians still debate the earliest use of coffee in Ethiopia. Some point to the 9th century legend of Kaldi the goat herder, who noticed his animals acting suspiciously hyper after chewing red berries. Others argue it wasn't until much later that brewing became common, especially as a social and spiritual event. But here, in this twilight hour, surrounded by stories and smoke, the origin hardly matters. You watch the pot carefully. The coffee inside simmers, bubbles, and then begins to rise, foam threatening to spill from the spout. She pulls it just in time, like a magician catching a disappearing act. The first pour is always slow. She tilts the jabina with practiced grace, filling the tiny cups halfway with the dark, oily liquid. No sugar yet, no milk, just the essence. You're handed a cup. It's hot. You sip, and it's bitter, in a way that hits the back of your throat and wakes something primal. It doesn't try to charm you. It's not a cappuccino. It's a challenge. It says, you wanted truth? Here it is. You accept. Slowly, the second round is prepared. This time, a spoonful of sugar is added. The bitterness softens. The taste opens. Now the coffee doesn't just talk, it sings. Low notes, yes, but with harmony. The third round comes even lighter, almost symbolic. It's called Barika, the blessing cup. You sip it gently, more ceremony than beverage. 3 cups, 3 sips of connection, to the land, to the people, to time itself. A man beside you begins telling a story, half in Amharic, half in body language. You don't understand every word, but you feel the shape of it. A tale about a woman, a lost goat, a jealous moon. The punchline makes everyone laugh, so you do too. It's contagious. Someone hands you a snack, small, sweet balls made of flour, butter, and honey, like donuts that never grew up. You pop one into your mouth. It dissolves into happiness. The goat reappears. Because of course he does. This time, he curls up beside the fire like a founding member of the coffee circle. No one protests. The fire pops gently. You feel it again. That slow, dreamy satisfaction of a full body and a warm spirit. The coffee has settled into your veins. You're alert, but not wired. Awake, but not anxious. You look around the circle. Here are people who've lived through droughts, wars, weddings, harvests, festivals, and the occasional goat heist. Their faces are maps of every season. Their eyes still sharp. Their smiles earned. One elder says something softly, pointing at the fire. Your guide leans over and translates. She says, "The fire forgets, but the smoke always remembers." You nod slowly. The smoke wraps around you like a scarf. Not choking, comforting. It carries the smell of beans, basil, spice, and something else. Something old. Perhaps the memory of that first person who roasted a coffee bean over coals and thought, yes, this will do. Historians still debate the ceremony's religious significance. Was it linked to fasting, prayer, a response to isolation? But in truth, the coffee ceremony is an answer to a much older question. How do we stay human? You finish your third cup. The woman gathers the tray, her face calm, her hands sure. No applause, no performance, just presence. You sit a little longer, and somewhere, beneath the quiet hum of insects and the occasional crackle of ember, you realize this too is part of the feast. The part where the food is done, but the warmth continues. The part where the meal moves inward and settles there. Morning again, though this one slips in more gently, like it's trying not to wake the mountains. The sky is a soft blend of lavender and gold, and the air carries a faint chill, the kind that makes you reach instinctively for something warm, even if it's just memory. You're walking now, alongside your guide, following a narrow path that winds through tall grass and stone terraces. The terrain has shifted again, less forest, more field. The land opens up into rolling hills, dotted with small huts and ancient-looking trees that lean like they've heard too many secrets. We're going to see the farmers, your guide says, without elaboration. You nod because at this point, ambiguity is comfort. As the sun climbs, you arrive at a clearing where half a dozen people are working in silence. Bent at the waist, bare feet in soil, they move methodically, harvesting something from low, leafy plants. This is teff, the grain at the heart of injera, of porridge, of Ethiopia itself. Tiny, smaller than a poppy seed, yet strong enough to hold up empires. A man straightens his back, wipes his brow with the edge of his tunic, and waves you over. You join him, crouching beside a woven basket filled with teff grains. He runs his hands through it like he's petting a very patient sand dune. It is like gold, he says simply. Teff is labor-intensive to grow, to harvest, to process. But it thrives where other crops wither, in high altitudes, in poor soil, during uncertain rains. Resilient, humble, and entirely essential. He invites you to help sift. You try. It's harder than it looks. The grains are so fine, they escape your fingers like gossip. You spill half the basket trying to pour it into a sack. The man watches, expression unreadable. Then he chuckles. City hands, he says. You've been called worse. Once the grain is sorted, a woman nearby begins preparing jinfo again, but this time with fresh teff flour. She stirs the bubbling pot with a long, flat stick, working with the patience of someone who's stirred more mornings than you've had socks. The porridge is thick, elastic, almost gelatinous. She carves a crater into the center and fills it with a vivid red sauce. Berbera again, melted in a niter kibbeh, thick and glossy like lava with good manners. You're handed a small wooden bowl. You eat with your fingers now, no pretense left. You scoop from the edge, dip into the center, and bring it to your mouth. The flavor is bold, almost aggressive. The spice hits first, then the warmth, then the grounding graininess of teff. It tastes like waking up from a long, useful sleep. You eat slowly. Nearby, children chase each other around a donkey cart. A boy trips, falls, and pops back up like gravity was just a suggestion. The women joke about your failed grain pouring. You laugh with them. Because why not? Historians still debate whether teff was first cultivated 3,000 or 5,000 years ago. Its exact origin is cloudy, but its importance is not. In Ethiopia, teff is more than a crop. It's a currency of nourishment, a symbol of endurance, a whisper from the past. After breakfast, your guide gestures toward a stone granary set into the hillside. He tells you this is a gudgad, a communal storehouse. Families place portions of their harvest here, sealed with clay and straw, protected against spoilage, theft, and drought. In times of need, the village can open it. A literal lifeline built from shared trust. Inside, it's cool and dim. You run your fingers over the stacked sacks. They rustle faintly, like wind through dry grass. It smells of earth, grain, and dusted hope. You exit back into the sunlight. The elder farmer from earlier waves you over again. This time, he offers a small cup of thick, white liquid. It's Ursho, a fermented teff drink, tangy and slightly fizzy, with a funk that announces itself before it even reaches your mouth. You sip. Your eyebrows go on a small adventure. It tastes alive, sour in a way that cleanses, like kombucha's older, wiser cousin who doesn't believe in shoes. The man smiles, nodding. Good for bones, he says. You don't question it. At this point, you've put stranger things in your mouth, and most of them are wonderful. Later, you sit under a tree whose roots look like they're plotting something. A woman sings softly nearby while weaving a basket. Her voice carries over the field like sunlight. The wind picks up just enough to rustle the grass, to cool the sweat on your brow. And for a long while, nothing happens, which of course is everything. You're full. But not just of food. You're full of land, of people who coax life from dust, of grains that don't give up, of hands that know how to feed not just mouths, but memories. You lie back in the grass. A hawk circles above. The teff plants sway. And far in the distance, a familiar bleat reminds you. The goat is watching. Always. You don't know exactly how it happened, but you're back in the highlands again, legs sore from walking, stomach rumbling with that strange new hunger that isn't just about food anymore. It's more curious, a craving not for dishes, but for details. Luckily, the details are waiting for you. At the edge of a forested slope, you find a small settlement that feels older than time. Stone walls, thatched roofs, the hum of bees in the distance. It smells faintly of wood smoke, wild thyme, and something earthy that turns out to be fermented honey bread. Your guide motions to a woman squatting near a sun-warmed rock. She's kneading dough, vigorously, rhythmically, with a force that suggests the dough may have insulted her family. You watch as she shapes the mixture into discs, dusts them with flour, and places them on a flat iron pan heated by coals. "What is it?" you ask. She grins. "Kita. Flatbread. The ancestor of the flatbreads. This one isn't spongy like injera. It's dense, chewy, slightly charred on the bottom, and you suspect it could survive a small war." She hands you a piece. You bite in. It's smoky, slightly sour from the fermented teff, with a satisfying crunch at the edges. No frills, just grain, fire, and time. Then she does something unexpected. She rips open a freshly cooked piece, slathers the inside with a bright yellow butter, and sprinkles it with a crushed mixture of berbera and salt. She folds it over, presses it together, and hands it back. You take a bite. Now, this is something else. The butter melts instantly, soaking into the hot bread. The spices bloom in your mouth, fiery but not angry. Comforting, assertive, like a grandmother who loves you but isn't afraid to throw a sandal. It's called kita fur, she tells you. A dish often eaten for breakfast or when you need a hug from the universe. You eat it in 3 happy bites. Better with coffee, she adds. Of course, historians still debate whether kita was once a ceremonial bread or simply the everyday fare of farmers. It shows up in ancient records, even paintings, always present, always unassuming. It may not be the star of the meal, but it's the steady hand on your back. Next, you're led to a smaller hut, a bit removed, with a faint metallic smell in the air. A man inside is crouched over a pit furnace, carefully turning small iron tools. He is making injera pans. Yes, even those must be crafted, made from forged metal, often passed down generations. The surface must be smooth, precise, trustworthy. It is, after all, the canvas for a nation's meals. He shows you how he seasons a new pan, rubbing it with onion, oil, and teff batter to create that signature non-stick surface. The ritual feels like a prayer. You nod solemnly. You get it. Outside again, a group of women gather beneath a tree with large, drooping leaves. They're plucking something small and green from the branches. You step closer. Gesho, your guide says. The Ethiopian hop, used in tella, the traditional homemade beer. You are, to your absolute non-surprise, offered a cup. It's cloudy, warm, and served in a gourd. You sniff it. It smells faintly sour, faintly sweet, and entirely suspicious. You sip. Your eyebrows immediately file a complaint. It's strong, not in alcohol, but in personality. Slightly tangy, yeasty, with a grainy back note like wet bread and determination. You blink once, then sip again. It grows on you. Historians still debate whether tella was used solely for festivals or as a daily drink. It varies by region, but it has always been brewed by women, using techniques passed down like lullabies and warnings. Each household's tella tastes different because it carries the story of who made it. As the sun tips toward late afternoon, you're invited to share another bite, this time a beso ball. Roasted barley flour mixed with spiced butter and a little honey, rolled into dense, fist-sized orbs. Travel food, warrior fuel, the kind of thing you could carry in a pouch and eat after climbing 3 mountains and wrestling a goat. You chew slowly. It's dry, yes, but nourishing, almost centering. The woman who made it pats your shoulder. For when there is no time to cook, she says, but still time to be strong. That line stays with you. You sit with the villagers a while longer, sipping weak tella, chewing beso, listening to gossip about a priest who allegedly fell asleep during mass and dreamed of a talking cow. You don't follow every word, but you catch the tone. It's all affectionate, Someone offers you a pinch of fito, a wild herb that smells like peppery mint and is often used in teas or as medicine. You chew it absent-mindedly. It clears your nose and makes your ears tingle. The goat walks by. He's wearing a flower now. You don't ask why. The wind picks up slightly. Smoke from the cooking fires spirals upward, tracing invisible lines into the cooling sky. You lean back, letting your hands sink into the dust, and close your eyes for a moment. The taste of kita and butter still lingers on your tongue. The laughter still echoes faintly in your ears. And your stomach? Still hungry, but differently. Hungry for more pieces of a puzzle that isn't meant to be solved, only savored. You awaken again, though you're not entirely sure you slept. It's a kind of full-body calm where time forgets to keep track. The night has passed without urgency, and the world outside your borrowed hut hums with the sounds of a morning too kind to rush anyone. Your guide is already waiting, holding a small woven pouch and wearing the expression of a man about to introduce you to something weird and possibly unforgettable. "We're chewing leaves today," he says, right? You follow him down a narrow path bordered by eucalyptus trees. Their scent is sharp and clean, cutting through the last of your sleep like polite lightning. Eventually, you arrive at a small group seated in a circle. There's a bowl in the center filled with slender green leaves, delicate, still damp with dew. One man is already chewing, slowly, methodically, with the focus of someone solving a math problem no one assigned. "Khat," your guide explains. "Ah yes, khat, a mildly stimulating leaf, chewed for its euphoric and focusing effects. Popular in parts of East Africa and the Arabian Peninsula. Technically a food, kind of a ritual, mostly a conversation partner." He hands you a few. You chew. It's bitter, sharp, grassy, but with a peppery back note that makes your lips tingle. The first few minutes are uneventful, just texture and the creeping suspicion that you're eating someone's lawn. Then, slowly, something shifts. Your mind sharpens. Your thoughts feel a little clearer. Not manic, just more awake. The conversation in the circle flows with gentle energy. The topic? Completely unclear. At one point, someone draws a sheep with a stick in the dirt, and a long debate follows about whether it needs wings. You laugh more than expected. Historians still debate the historical role of cod in Ethiopian society. Some argue it was strictly a social custom, used to pass the time during long discussions. Others believe it had religious significance, aiding concentration during prayer or meditation. Today, its use is more controversial, its legality debated, but in this quiet circle, it's simply a way to be present. Someone passes you a roasted chickpea snack, warm, salted, and perfect for offsetting the cod's bitterness. Another offers a drink, telba, a sesame seed beverage. Creamy, nutty, slightly grainy but comforting. Like drinking liquid nostalgia if your childhood involved sesame and questionable decisions. You sip, chew, listen. The wind picks up, rustling the tall grasses at the edge of the clearing. The sun blinks through the tree branches in slow pulses. Someone shares a story about a horse that fell in love with a flute player. You don't understand it, but feels true. Your guide leans in. "Want something sweeter?" he asks. You pretend to hesitate. He leads you a short walk away to a small hut that smells of roasted barley and vanilla. Inside, a woman stands over a large stone slab, pressing something into a pan. It's golden brown, cut into squares, slightly sticky. She hands you one. You bite. Double kolo. Tiny pieces of baked bread, sweetened with honey, spiced lightly with cardamom or cloves. Crunchy, addicting, easy to carry. You pop another piece in your mouth and try not to ask for the entire tray. It's a common snack, especially during holidays or for guests. There's even a superstition that whoever makes the best debo kolo in the village will find love before the next rainy season. You don't know if that's true, but the woman who made yours winks as you leave, so you're choosing to believe it. Next, you're brought to a shaded area where two older women are preparing something special. They kneel over a basket filled with layers of leaves, ashes, and an earthy paste. "What is it?" you ask. "Kocho," your guide replies. "Ah, The mysterious kocho, fermented insect, false banana, pulp, scraped, packed, buried underground in banana leaves, then pulled out and cooked when ready. Often misunderstood, definitely underestimated. One woman pats the paste into thin patties and tosses them onto a flat pan over the fire. The smell is complex, smoky, nutty, with a tang that says, "I've been waiting my turn." You try it. The texture is dense, almost rubbery, but not unpleasant. The taste? Somewhere between sourdough bread and a tree with confidence. They serve it with spicy sauce and a dollop of niter for courage. It's not your favorite, but you respect it. It's food that earned its place. Historians still debate whether kocho was a famine food, a specialty for elites, or a communal staple. Likely all three. Its preservation method alone tells you everything. This is food built for hard times, built to last. As the day warms, you move again, this time to a clearing where a group of children are learning to roast barley. Each child holds a small metal bowl over coals, carefully stirring the golden grains until they pop and brown. You try one. Crispy, nutty, perfect. Your guide tells you roasted barley is often crushed in a flour and mixed with butter to make kinche, or just eaten as is for energy. It's survival food with a snacky soul. And now, somehow, it's evening again. You sit by a new fire, a new set of faces, but the same comforting hum of shared time. A young man pulls out a crowar, a six-string lyre, and begins to play. The notes are soft, twangy, gently chaotic. He sings in a low, smooth voice about a warrior who forgot his horse but remembered his comb. You laugh even before the translation. You've eaten more than your fill, but you still crave. Not food, not stories, not even the goat, who, yes, is now inexplicably wearing sunglasses. You crave more moments like this. Moments that fill you without needing to explain themselves. Moments that taste like presents. The next morning starts not with food, but with silence. You're in the mountains again, higher than before. The air is thin, crisp, with that icy bite that turns breath into fog and thoughts into whispers. The world feels older here, less interested in time, more in stillness. The village is barely more than 5 homes tucked into a fold of the cliff. No sound but the wind, the distant bleat of sheep, and the rhythmic tapping of wood on stone. You follow it. A woman sits near the edge of a terraced ledge, cracking gesho branches, Ethiopian buckthorn, into small shards and dropping them into a clay pot filled with fermenting grains. She's making tej, the famous honey wine of the highlands. But this batch is different. Monastery style, your guide whispers. This version of tej is stronger. Earthier, brewed longer, fermented deeper, made for more than just weddings and toasts. Monks use it during festivals, yes, but also, as legend goes, to soften the edge of silence during fasting seasons. You're offered a cup. It glows gold in the morning light, slightly cloudy, with flecks of wax still floating on top like the last whispers of bees. You sip. It's sweet at first, floral, but then a slow warmth builds in your throat, steady, rolling, ancient, like a memory you never had. Beside you, the woman chuckles. "Now you understand prayer," she says. You nod. You think you do. Historians still debate the original use of tej. Was it sacred? Was it recreational? Was it medicinal? The answer is probably yes to all. It's the kind of drink that holds many faces in one cup. Later, as the wind picks up and clouds gather like gossipers, you're invited into a home made of stone and eucalyptus wood. Inside, the hearth glows with orange coals, and the walls are lined with baskets, each woven with stories. A man is preparing something. He kneels beside the fire, stirring a pot with solemn intensity. Admit, a warm, porridge-like drink made from barley or oat flour, milk, butter, and a touch of sugar or honey. Thick, soothing, with the consistency of a hug delivered by spoon. You're handed a gourd. You sip. It coats your tongue, your throat, your soul. Sweet, but not too sweet. Rich, but not overwhelming. The kind of comfort food served during illness, recovery, or just before a long walk through clouds. Drink slowly, the man says, or you'll miss the blessing. You oblige. You ask what makes it different from other porridges. The intention, he answers. Fair enough. A young boy sits beside you, offering a piece of something flat, soft, and pale. You recognize it instantly now, injera, but this one is special. Thicker, rolled, stuffed with a sweet spiced paste made from roasted barley and honey. They call it injera fet, a festive version of injera, torn and tossed with ghee and honey, usually prepared during holidays or rites of passage. You chew slowly. The texture is both familiar and new. The sweetness balanced by the underlying sourness of the teff. It's playful, even joyful. You wipe your fingers and notice something carved into the doorframe. Ancient Guizi script, the liturgical language of Ethiopian Orthodox Christianity. Your guide traces the letters with his finger. It says, "What the mouth remembers, the heart keeps." Outside, the clouds part just enough to let a shaft of light hit the valley below. It glitters like a bowl of silver lentils. You're invited to one final meal before descent. A large flat basket is laid before you, layered with fresh injera. On top, neat piles of vegetables, lentils, pureed peas, beetroot stew, collard greens, and something bright and orange. It kilt what a stew of cabbage, carrots, and potatoes simmered in turmeric and garlic. You eat with your hands. No talking, just shared glances, shared steam, shared chewing. It's not fancy, but it's perfect. One of the elders nods toward you and says something in a quiet tone. Your guide translates with a smile. She says you chew like someone who listens. You don't know how to respond, but you chew more carefully after that. Historians still debate whether the Highland monks developed their own food culture intentionally or out of necessity. Their cuisine is simple, yes, but it's also layered with tradition, with symbolism, with grace. You rise, full again, not stuffed but right-sized, like someone who's eaten not just with their stomach, but with their ears and eyes and breath. You step outside as the mist rolls back in, and standing at the edge of the path, the goat. Of course, he snorts softly. You don't ask where he's been. You just follow. Because even now, after mountains of injera and oceans of tej, your journey isn't over. Not even close. You descend from the highlands slowly, legs complaining with every step, but the kind of complaint that comes with satisfaction, like a song's last note drawn out just for the pleasure of ending. The air thickens as you lower into the valleys again. Trees grow taller, the birds get louder, and your stomach, despite the day's earlier feasting, starts to whisper hopeful thoughts about lunch. It doesn't take long. You follow the sound of a pounding rhythm, wood on wood, deliberate and strong. At the edge of a clearing, two women work in tandem, one holding a long wooden pestle, the other a carved mortar carved from tree trunk. They're pounding inset, also known as the false banana plant. But this isn't for Cocho. This is bulla, the starchy sap scraped from the core of the inset plant, collected, fermented slightly, and turned into a kind of jelly or porridge. It's survival food, yes, but around here, it's also a delicacy when made right. One woman peels away a layer of banana leaves, revealing a pale, gelatinous mound. It glistens faintly. You try not to look concerned. They ladle it into a small bowl, top it with melted niter kibi, and sprinkle a dash of berbera and salt on top. You take a breath, then a bite. The texture is unusual, somewhere between custard and firm jelly. But the taste is surprisingly gentle. Slightly tangy, neutral on its own, but brought to life by the spiced butter, like rice pudding that went on a spiritual journey. It's warm, comforting, and entirely unexpected. Historians still debate how long bulla has been consumed. It requires an impressive amount of labor: peeling, scraping, fermenting, drying, cooking. Some say it was food for warriors on long campaigns. Others say it was for those recovering from illness. Either way, it's revered not for its glamour, but for its loyalty. You're handed a second bowl, this time cooled and firmer. A kind of energy bar in jelly form. It jiggles slightly when you poke it. You eat it in 2 bites and feel, oddly, like you could sprint up a mountain if someone asked nicely. The village elder waves you over. She holds a bowl of niter kibi, golden and fragrant, with specks of cardamom and black cumin swimming near the surface. She dips a spoon in and drizzles it over a fresh round of injera, then folds it into a tidy triangle. You take it. It drips slightly, glistening in the light. The bite is heavenly. The injera soaks in the spiced butter like a sponge with ambition. Every chew releases warmth, depth, memory. This is food for returning travelers, she says, to bring back their soul. You nod, because you've tasted that before, and you're tasting it now. Later, you walk through a small grove where the trees twist like dancers caught mid-turn. A few men sit at a rough-hewn table, slicing raw beef into strips. You pause. Your guide grins. Kitfo, he says. Ah, the daring one. Made from freshly minced beef, mixed with mitmita, a fiery chili powder, and niterkibi. Served raw, medium, or cooked, but always a moment of trust between cook and guest. You're offered a plate. They've gently seared the meat, leb style, just enough to warm it through. It's deep red, flecked with orange spice, resting beside a small mound of ayib, a crumbly white cheese like feta's friendlier cousin. You try the kitfo with a piece of injera. It melts. The meat is soft, like silk and spice had a baby. The mitmita hits like a whispered dare. The cheese cools everything down. You take another bite, this time with a sliver of green herb, kozeret. It adds a lemony lift, a surprise breeze through a spicy storm. You glance up at the others. They're watching. You give a slow, respectful nod. They nod back. It's the international sign for, yeah, that's good stuff. Historians still debate how old kitfo truly is. Some say it was warriors' fare, quick to make, rich in energy, eaten in secret during fasts. Others believe it was always a dish of celebration. Either way, it's not just meat. It's a statement, bold, unmasked, sacred. As the sun dips lower, painting the fields gold, you're handed a final bite. Duro ali cha, a mild chicken stew, turmeric-based with garlic and ginger. This one doesn't shout. It whispers. Tender meat, a mellow sauce, a bed of injera waiting patiently underneath. It's food that doesn't need to prove anything. It just is simple, reliable. The kind of dish that shows up when you're tired, when you're grieving, or when you just need to remember that gentleness exists. You eat slowly, savoring the calm. The world begins to cool again. And there, on the ridge, outlined by the last of the orange light, the goat. You don't wave. You just nod. Because at this point, you understand each other. No need for fanfare. No need for ceremony. Just the shared understanding that some meals feed the body. Others feed everything else. You spend the next part of the evening walking slowly along a winding footpath etched into the side of a gentle slope. The ground crunching beneath your feet like warm toast under a knife. The sun has nearly bowed out, leaving behind a sky that blushes purple at the edges. You're full but not done. This isn't about hunger anymore. It's about invitation. And you've just been invited to a wedding. Not the ceremony that happened earlier, up in the hills, where family members sang in overlapping harmonies and someone fainted. Not from joy or nerves, but from the heat and excitement. No, what you're walking into now is the feast. You arrive at a long, low house with the doors open wide and music humming from inside. The scent hits you first, roasting meat, bubbling spices, smoke clinging to air like silk to skin. People are gathered under a canopy made from stitched-together sheets. Laughter flowing as easily as Tej. You're ushered in without question. You're clearly not family, and possibly not even from this century, but that doesn't matter. In this moment, you are a guest. And in Ethiopia, that makes you sacred. At the heart of the gathering sits a large clay pot, steaming and thick-walled, nestled into a ring of hot coals. Beside it, an older man stirs with a carved wooden ladle the size of a canoe oar. He looks at you and smiles with just his eyes. He's making doro wat, the royal stew, the pride of the feast. Spicy chicken braised in berbera and onions, simmered for hours until it becomes something between a sauce and a legend. He lifts the lid briefly. The steam is red. That's the only way to describe it. Red, hot, fragrant with garlic, ginger, and that unmistakable kiss of niterkibi. Nestled deep in a broth, you spot what looks like hard-boiled eggs, their surfaces stained golden with spice. These, you're told, are essential. Each egg represents a blessing: fertility, prosperity, peace. You hope you get one. A large round of injera is laid out before you. Then the ladle rises, and the stew pours forth in thick, lava-like streams, pooling over the spongy bread until it's nearly soaked through. You sit cross-legged on a low stool, watching the dish settle. A woman beside you tears off a piece of injera and dips it gently into the center. She offers it to you with a warm grin. You accept it. It's hot. You blow slightly, then take the bite, and you ascend. The chicken is so tender it yields to the touch of your tongue. The spice is a symphony. The fire from Berbera is immediate but not rude. It says, "Wake up, not run." The niter kibbeh adds depth, a buttery undertone that smooths the heat like velvet over embers. And the injera? It holds everything together. A sponge, a raft, a faithful translator between stew and soul. You eat slowly, reverently. One bite includes an egg. You chew it with care. And while you're not planning to become more fertile or prosperous this week, you do feel profoundly blessed. Historians still debate the origins of Doro Wat. Some say it was once reserved for emperors and priests. Others argue it simply required the kind of time and spice reserves only the wealthy could afford. Either way, it became a dish of ceremony, of status, and, most importantly, of sharing. As the night deepens, other dishes arrive, like guests who knew not to come too early. Tips: sautéed lamb or beef with peppers and onions, charred just enough to whisper of smoke. Ayib bigomen, a soft cheese served with collard greens stewed until they surrender. Shiro wat, a chickpea flour stew, creamy and orange, with a flavor that punches way above its weight class. Each bite is a chapter. Each dish a chorus member in a well-rehearsed song. Someone passes you more tej. You accept without hesitation. Your cup is sticky now. Your fingers too. But your face is glowing. There's dancing now. Feet stomping softly on the packed dirt floor. Shoulders rolling to rhythms passed down like recipes. Someone drags you into the circle. You protest in that universal guest at a wedding way. Then you dance anyway. It doesn't matter how well. What matters is that you're moving in the same direction, to the same beat, under the same stars. Outside, the night air has cooled to perfection. A few guests sit on a ledge, plates in hand, quietly munching on leftovers and watching the moon rise. You join them. Someone hands you a piece of ambasha, a sweet, slightly spiced bread often served at celebrations. It's soft, patterned on top, and flavored with cardamom and just a hint of honey. You nibble it slowly, almost as dessert, even though no one here talks about courses. One man beside you, an uncle or maybe a professional wedding guest, leans in and says, "Food is memory." That's why we feed each other. You nod and swallow, because it's true. Every dish you've tasted tonight will be remembered, not just in the folds of your stomach, but in the corners of your mind. Anchors tied to moments, to faces, to music and missteps on the dance floor. Later, when you finally rise and stretch and prepare to drift off, you look back toward the house. The fire is low now. The stew has been scraped clean, but the warmth lingers. In your chest, in your limbs, and yes, most certainly in your belly. The next morning begins not with the sound of birdsong or the bubbling of coffee, but with the metallic clatter of pots being scrubbed, aggressively. You crack one, eye open to find yourself on a mat under a sloping roof, the faint smell of wood smoke still tangled in your clothes. Your head feels soft around the edges, a telltale gift from too much tej, and somewhere in the courtyard, someone is singing badly, but with conviction. You're still at the wedding house, which is, apparently, still celebrating. But this morning, you're not eating at the feast table. You're joining the real kitchen, where meals are made, not just served. And breakfast? It's already underway. Your guide waves you over, holding up a small, flat basket woven tight with straw. On it lies a pile of dark, almost black beans, glossy and cracked slightly. "These," he says, with far more reverence than one might expect for legumes, "are coffee. Ah, Buna. The sacred, social, spiritual backbone of Ethiopian daily life. More than a drink, a ceremony, a tether between generations and neighbors and strangers. A love letter written in steam and served 3 times. You settle beside a woman seated cross-legged on the floor, already roasting green coffee beans over a shallow charcoal brazier. The pan is flat and round, and she stirs continuously, never letting a single bean rest for too long. The scent rises slowly at first, nutty, faintly grassy, but then deepens into something rich, toasty, magnetic. It hits your brain like a memory of warmth you hadn't realized you missed. When the beans darken to the right shade of oily brown, she tips them into a wooden mortar and pounds them slowly, rhythmically. Each strike echoes through the courtyard like a heartbeat. She spoons the crushed grounds into a jabina, the round-bottomed clay coffee pot with its elegant spout. Water is added, the pot placed directly on the coals, and you wait. The brew takes time, but then the smell. It curls around you like a shawl. Bold, earthy, slightly sweet. The kind of smell that promises you'll make it through the day, even if the day includes scrubbing pots or herding goats. Someone hands you a tiny porcelain cup. No handle, no sugar, no milk. You sip, and for a moment, nothing else exists. It's strong, not aggressive, just confident, like a grandmother who makes you sit up straight with just her presence. The flavor carries notes of smoke, soil, and patience. It wakes you without shouting. The first cup, they say, is Abel, the strongest, for the soul. The second, Tana, for sharing. The third, Baraka, for blessing. You're served all 3. With each cup, the conversation deepens, softens, unspools. Politics, gossip, family legends, farming woes. The talk wanders like a goat through an open gate. You understand little, but you feel everything. With the coffee comes kolo, a mix of roasted barley, peanuts, and chickpeas, served in a small wooden bowl. Salty, crunchy, perfectly mindless to snack on while words swirl around you like steam. You eat, you sip, you forget time exists. Historians still debate the exact origin of coffee. Was it the goat herd Kaldi and his famously energetic goats? Was it the monks who needed something to keep them awake during midnight prayers? What's not debated is this. Ethiopia is coffee's cradle, and Buna is its lullaby and battle cry, served in the same breath. Later, you're offered a different sort of breakfast, fit, made by tearing pieces of injera into a bowl and soaking them in leftover stew or spice butter. The texture is soft, the flavor intense, a spicy sponge of dreams. It's what you'd eat on a cold morning when you need to remember why waking up matters. You eat in silence, the warm bowl in your lap, the morning sun stretching its golden fingers across the courtyard. A child walks by carrying a tiny goat in his arms. The goat bleats once, dramatically, as if it's been offended by the lack of toast. You lock eyes. He's back. Of course. Your guide smiles. He never misses Buna. Next, you're handed a small clay dish of besso, roasted barley flour mixed with honey, butter, and sometimes milk. It's more paste than porridge, but in your mouth, it melts with a slow richness. It tastes like memory and soil and something too old for English. Traveler food, someone says. The kind you carry in your pocket. The kind that strengthens your legs more than your stomach. The kind you don't eat to be full, but to remember home when you're far from it. You nod slowly, because that's what this has become. Not just a tasting tour or a cultural lesson, but a gathering of homes. Each dish, a tiny doorway. Each sip, a step down a hallway of ancestors. The third round of coffee is poured. Baraka, blessing. The woman who brewed it sets her cup down, looks at you with eyes that have seen more rainstorms than presidents, and simply says, "You are fed now." And you are. In every way. You leave the village slowly, like someone parting with a dear friend at a train station. There's no fanfare, no waving flags, just a few murmured goodbyes, a last piece of ambasha slipped into your hand, and the faint clink of dishes being washed somewhere behind you. The path back is gentle, winding between groves of eucalyptus and tall inset plants, their broad green leaves still slick with morning dew. You walk in quiet, the way full bellies and full hearts tend to move. But then, smoke. A small curl of it, thin and silvery, curling from a distant corner of a low, sun-baked field. You follow it, of course, like you followed every other scent, sound, and story so far. What you find is not a kitchen. It's a pit. Rough stones form a fire ring, and in the center, a heap of charcoal crackles faintly. Over it, balanced on an iron stand, sits a flat pan, blackened with age and heavy with history. Beside it, frying oil, a wooden spoon the size of a canoe paddle, and a very determined woman. She's making sambusas, triangular pastries stuffed with lentils, spiced beef, or vegetables, then fried until the edges are crisp and blistered, and the whole thing crackles like autumn leaves when you bite in. You watch her fold one, deft hands moving so quickly you barely catch the flick of the wrist before it's sealed. She dunks it into the oil. The pan hisses like it's offended. She turns to you, raises an eyebrow, and nods toward a cooling rack. An invitation. You take one. Huh. Greasy in the best possible way. You bite. Crunch. Then softness, savory lentils, warm berbera, a hint of cardamom, and something faintly citrusy, maybe ground coriander. It tastes like the secret between lunch and dinner. Like something you'd sneak under your shawl during a festival and eat behind the water jugs. You grin. She grins back. Historians still debate the sambusa's origin. Did it arrive via trade routes from Persia? Or did it evolve independently in East Africa? Either way, it has been here for centuries, adapting to the hands that make it. Vegetarian during fasts, meaty during feasts, but always pocket-sized joy. As you finish your second, third, sambusa, a boy runs by with a tray balanced on his head. On it, a bowl of something white and lumpy. Curiosity, as always, wins. You follow. It's ayib, the Ethiopian cheese. Fresh, unaged mild. Usually eaten with spicy stews to temper the fire. But today, it's being served with berbera and ghee, mixed until the whole thing becomes something between a dip and an offering. You try with a scrap of injera. It's rich, mildness layered under spice, the cheese cooling the heat but never hiding it. It's yin and yang. It's fire and pillow. It's delicious. You wipe your fingers on your sleeve. You've stopped pretending to be neat. That ship sailed around Section 7. Your guide appears again. This way, he says. You glance down. It's a market. A small one. Open air. Rows of woven baskets and clay pots and wooden trays lined with spice mounds that rise like miniature volcanoes. Red for berbera. Golden yellow for turmeric. Deep green for dried tinatum. Black for toasted cumin seeds. The smell? It nearly knocks you over. Spice. Charcoal. Dust. Citrus. Sweat. Life. You wander from stall to stall, tasting, sniffing, learning. One vendor hands you a tiny cup of something steaming. Telbo again, sesame seed drink, this time laced with honey and ginger. It slides down your throat with a warmth that doesn't ask permission. Another offers debo, a round loaf of yeast bread, sliced thick and spiced with cinnamon and black seed. You eat it with a dollop of siljo, a fermented chickpea paste traditionally served during fasting seasons. It's sour, pungent, strange. You like it more than you expected. Your guide picks up a packet of korima, Ethiopian cardamom, larger and darker than the green kind. He hands it to you. Pocket this, he says, to remember when you're gone. You do. And now, something you weren't expecting. A group of women in a shaded corner, giggling as they prepare what looks like dessert? Yes, halawa, a soft sweet made from roasted flour, butter, and sugar, sometimes touched with cloves or cardamom. Each square is dense, golden, and dusted lightly with crushed sesame. You take one. It crumbles slightly. Tastes like the bridge between childhood and ritual. Soft, sweet, but not sugary. The kind of thing your grandmother might tuck in your pocket as a bribe or a blessing. Historians still debate whether halawa came from the Arab world or evolved from older local grain rituals. But what matters more is that it's always brought out at the right time, when guests need coaxing into staying just a little longer. You stay. Of course you stay. The goat walks by again, dragging a string of dried chilies like a parade banner. You salute. It's only polite. As the sun leans lower in the sky, the market begins to pack up. You clutch a small woven pouch filled with spice and memory. Your stomach is full, your fingers stained red from berbera, and your soul, frankly, is a little overwhelmed. Not in a bad way, just in the way that happens when you realize a meal can be more than survival. It can be story, it can be history, it can be love, written in lentils and injera. The road is quieter now. After the laughter and heat of the market, you find yourself walking through a broad valley where fields stretch in golden ripples and the only sounds are crickets tuning up for their nightly performance and the occasional bark of a dog too lazy to investigate. Your guide is silent beside you. He knows something is coming. You don't know what, but you trust the silence. Eventually, you reach a stone building that doesn't look like much. Thick walls, low roof, a door just wide enough to suggest mystery. But inside, it smells like fermentation and fire and something sweet and dark, like a memory you forgot was yours. A man greets you, hand-stained, sleeves rolled high. He's standing beside a cluster of clay jars, tall and narrow, each stoppered with twisted leaves and weighted stones. He gestures toward the largest one and says a single word. Tella. The traditional Ethiopian beer, brewed from barley, wheat, maize, or a combination, and flavored with gesho leaves, just like tej. But unlike honey wine, Tella is a village affair. Less ceremony, more community. It's what's served during funerals, harvests, or Thursdays. You sit. He pulls the stopper from the jar with the seriousness of someone opening an old book. The scent that rises is complex, earthy, sour, yeasty, and very much alive. He ladles it into a wooden cup and hands it to you. You sip. It's cloudy, slightly fizzy, sour in a way that surprises, then comforts. There's a breadiness to it, like it was made by someone who knew how to speak fluent grain. The man watches you carefully, then nods. Approval. Historians still debate where Tella falls on the food-beverage spectrum. Is it sustenance? Is it leisure? The answer, naturally, is yes. In some rural areas, it still stands in for meals during times of scarcity. It is both party fuel and daily bread. Someone brings over a small bowl of Genfo. You blink. Genfo is not what you expected to follow beer. But here it is, a thick porridge made from barley or wheat flour, stirred constantly over fire until it forms a glossy mound in the center of the bowl. A crater is carved into the top, and into that crater, oh mercy, they pour hot niter kibi and berbera, swirling it until it gleams like molten fire. You're handed a spoon, but the elders around you are already digging in with fingers, twirling each bite around to catch the buttery center. You follow suit. It's dense, hearty, and when you hit the middle, boom, spice, butter, warmth, fire. It's like finding a sunrise at the center of a loaf of bread. Genfo is often eaten in the early mornings or late at night, especially by farmers or fasting monks. It's food designed to stick with you, to fuel hard work, or prayer, or just the general task of being alive. You clean your bowl. The man nods again. You may now enter the next level of fullness, content bordering on stunned. Later, someone offers you a small ball of something wrapped in banana leaf. You've stopped asking questions. You just open, smell, and trust. Inside, Tylo, tiny dough balls made from roasted barley flour, rolled smooth, and dipped into spicy meat sauce before each bite. Traditionally eaten in the Tigray region, it's food that insists you slow down. You're not meant to gobble this. You're meant to dip, to wait, to choose. The sauce is hot, smoky, slightly metallic from the red pepper. The dough balls are soft with a nutty undertone. The combination? Bold and deliberate. Each bite demands attention. It's quiet here, and somehow, Tylo makes sense in this silence. Historians still debate how long Tylo has existed. Some say it predates injera, others that it was born of ceremonial needs. It's a dish often shared during engagement ceremonies in some regions, each person feeding the other as a sign of trust. You feed yourself, but the trust is still there. You realize, as night falls like a soft curtain, that you've stopped cataloging dishes and started collecting feelings. Each flavor is a key to something bigger. History, Yes, but also comfort, rebellion, pride, invention. Someone brings a bowl of chechebsa, torn up flatbread fried with spice butter, sometimes soaked in honey, other times mixed with berbera and garlic. Breakfast? Maybe. Midnight snack? Absolutely. You tear a piece. Chew. It's chewy, oily, spicy and sweet at the same time. A contradiction that works. You glance over, and of course the goat is there. This time, he's wearing a scarf. The universe offers no explanation. You nod anyway. Your guide points upward. Come, he says. You follow him to a small hill overlooking the entire valley, a sweep of gold and blue under a rising moon. Someone has set out a basket. On it, little piles of snacks you've seen before. Kolo, debo kolo, and basha, even a sliver of halawa. You sit, you eat, and you watch. Below, lanterns flicker between the trees. Children laugh somewhere distant. Drums thump softly like a heartbeat you can barely feel. And for a moment, the food stops being food. It becomes language. 1,000 conversations you never had to speak. 1,000 doors that open just because you said yes to another bite. You wake the next day with a strange ache, not in your stomach, which has long since surrendered to this relentless parade of joy, but in your chest. The kind that follows a slow, sweet goodbye that hasn't happened yet. Today, you're told, is your last full day on this journey. And like any proper ending, it begins with pancakes. But not the syrupy kind, you know. These are kaitna, thin layers of injera, smeared generously with niter kibi and berbera, then folded like letters you'll never send. They're spicy, and buttery, and softly defiant. Breakfast rebellion. You're served two. The first, you eat carefully, try not to drip butter down your wrist. The second, you wolf it down like a thief. It's okay. The elders smirk knowingly. After breakfast, your guide takes you to a school. Not for children, but for traditions. Here, elders gather every week to practice oral storytelling, teach ceremonial dances, and, most importantly, cook things nobody makes at home anymore. Dishes at risk of extinction. In a shaded courtyard, 3 women are grinding something in a heavy stone mill. Thick grains. Sweet smelling. Degussa, someone says. You blink. Ah, yes, finger millet. One of Ethiopia's oldest grains. Used for porridge, beer, even flatbread before teff became the star of the table. Today, they're making it mid again, but this version is older. Simpler. No milk. No sugar. Just roasted degussa, boiled with water, spiced with a hint of fenugreek and black cumin. You sip. It tastes like what a grandmother might serve a sick poet. Earthy, faintly bitter, quietly nourishing. Historians still debate why degussa fell out of fashion. Some say it was harder to grow. Others blame teff's rise to fame. But no one denies its place in the ancient kitchen. Next, a man in a striped shawl beckons you toward a pile of what looks like charred hay. Not quite. It's kikfo debo, bread baked underground, wrapped in leaves, buried with hot coals, and forgotten for hours. It emerges dark, smoky, and slightly singed, like a forest loaf hiding its secrets. He cuts a slice. Steam snakes upward. You bite. It's dense, chewy. The smoke clings to the crust, but the center is soft and slightly sweet, almost nutty. It doesn't apologize for being simple. You respect that. Later, you're handed a small plate of tahilo tibs, a rare hybrid of dough balls sautéed with meat and berbera, a mashup of customs from different regions. It's fusion, but not in the trendy avocado toast way. This is fusion born of families marrying across villages. Borders fading, palates evolving. You chew slowly. Each bite is a peace treaty. And then comes something entirely new. Bisrat furfur. You ask twice, thinking you misheard. Nope. It's injera, torn and soaked in cooled tej, then tossed with herbs and dried fruit. A kind of boozy injera salad. Sweet and tart and chewy. A festival oddity made by exactly 3 grandmothers in one corner of the Highlands. You love it immediately. It makes no sense. It also makes perfect sense. The women who made it cackle when you go back for seconds. And then, just when you think you're safe, someone passes you a bowl of nesh shiro, a rare white version of the chickpea stew, made with ground white lentils, garlic, and spiced butter. It's smooth, velvety, less aggressive than its orange sibling, but with the same quiet confidence. You eat it with folded injera and the kind of sai you use to reserve for sunsets. At some point, the goat shows up again. This time, he's chewing on a handout. Not a paper, an actual injera menu. You both pretend not to notice each other. Then, a little surprise, duro fit. Not stew, but the leftover meat from doro what? Shredded and tossed with torn injera, spiced butter, and a splash of lemon. It's like eating the after-party of a feast. Messy, joyful, rich with second chances. You clean your plate. Your guy grins. Final test coming, he says. And that's how you find yourself facing a pot of gomenbi siga, collard greens stewed with chunks of beef, onions, and enough garlic to frighten a vampire mid-lecture. The smell alone could revive a fainting monk. You try a spoonful, then another. It's hearty, honest. The kind of dish that doesn't care what time it is, only that you're tired and need something real. Historians still debate whether gomen was always this rich. Some say meat was added only when times were good. Others insist it was a way to honor guests. Either way, you feel deeply honored. As the day stretches into golden light, someone brings you a glass aboard. You hesitate. It's murky, brown, fermented grain drink. Somewhere between beer, porridge, and swamp potion. But you drink. It's sour, funky, alive. And after a few sips, you feel oddly alert, like your blood just remembered how to stretch. The women laugh again. They knew it would happen. By now, you've stopped wondering why anything happens. You just nod and let the flavors do what they came to do. You sit under a fig tree, and slowly, quietly, you start to feel something like closure. Not goodbye, just fullness. You're sitting on the ground beneath a canopy of fig and Cordia africana trees, the kind with smooth bark and long memory. The late afternoon sun is filtering through in golden webs, dust motes dancing in the air like lazy fairies who've had a bit too much tej. Your guide approaches quietly, like he's afraid to wake the moment. It's time, he says. You rise, bones creaking in protest, but your heart strangely light. You've eaten nearly everything short of the walls themselves. And yet here, at the edge of things, there's one last meal to share. Barakat. It means blessing. And today, it comes in the form of a fasting meal. Because in Ethiopia, fasting isn't just abstaining. It's a rhythm of life. Nearly 200 days a year, many Orthodox Christians follow a strict vegan diet, rich in legumes, vegetables, and oil, but never animal products. It's not deprivation. It's discipline laced with flavor. And that's what you're about to taste. The table is low. The plates are wide. The injera is laid out like a map. You're seated next to a woman with the kind of face that makes you straighten your posture without knowing why. She points softly. You begin. First, shiro. The familiar orange chickpea stew returns, but this version has been simmered longer, thickened to velvet. It's spicier today, like it knows it's the star of the show. The berbera sings louder. The garlic leans in. Next to it, a kilt what? Cabbage, carrots, and potatoes stewed in turmeric and oil. The color is sunshine. The flavor is gentle, like a lullaby your body remembers, even if your mind does not. You scoop, eat, breathe. Then, azafa, cold lentil salad mixed with mustard, lime, onion, and green chili. It has the bite of good gossip and the tang of truth. It's the kind of dish that clears your head, whether you want it to or not. You go back for seconds. Your fingers are stained yellow. Your heart is stained something you can't name. A small bowl appears, fasolia. Green beans sautéed with tomatoes, onions, and olive oil. It crunches slightly. The oil clings. It's basic, but it's also the kind of thing you'd crave in the middle of a winter night without knowing why. Then, taikel gomen. This version is stripped down, just cabbage and carrot, slow cooked until nearly sweet. No spices, just salt. The kind of dish you eat with your eyes closed and your shoulders lowered. A quiet kind of healing. Historians still debate how these fasting dishes manage to retain such bold flavors despite strict limitations. Some argue it's the influence of spices. Others say it's creativity born of constraint. You decide it's both, and also possibly magic. Next comes Mizurwat. Oh yes, the red lentil stew. Back for a final bow. This time it's deeper, almost smoky, with a note of something earthy, cumin, maybe, or just the memory of 100 lentils dancing in oil. And then salata, simple tomato, onion, and green chili salad. Crisp, raw, unapologetic. It wakes you from the lull of warm stews. Balance. That's what this meal is about. Not flash, not meat, just balance. You feel full but never heavy. Satisfied but not sluggish. Your guide breaks the quiet. Most people think fasting means emptiness, but here it just means space. You nod, and you get it. Because in that space, between expectation and ritual, between hunger and patience, flavor grows. A child walks by with a tray of injera crisps. The crunchy, dried edges from the griddle, snapped and salted like chips. You try one. It tastes like snack food in another language. Someone hands you telbo again. Cold, creamy, sesame, clove, ginger. It slides down smooth and quiet, like a secret between sips. The sun has begun to dip. The air is softer now. In the courtyard, someone is reciting a poem in Amharic. You don't understand the words, but the rhythm settles in your bones like a heartbeat. You find yourself chewing more slowly, listening harder. Your host approaches. In his hands, a small offering. Yeet sampa, a mixed fasting platter, assembled with ceremony. All the dishes from today, in perfect harmony. A final canvas before you leave the kitchen behind. You accept it with both hands. He smiles. You've eaten like a king, he says. Now eat like a monk. The final bites are quiet. You taste, then breathe, then taste again. Each flavor lands like a farewell kiss. Not needy, just grateful. The goat walks past again, this time without fanfare, as if he too understands this is not the time for spectacle. Only stillness. The meal ends without dessert, because today, the meal is enough. You wash your hands in a basin of rose water. The scent lingers, like every dish you've met on this journey. And for the first time, you feel not just full, but ready. You sleep that night beneath a ceiling of stars. No woods, just open sky, a woven mat beneath you, and the hum of insects conducting a lullaby they've rehearsed since the dawn of the highlands. The moon is low. The air is velvet. A breeze passes through that smells faintly of roasted grain and eucalyptus bark still drying in the sun. You lie there, hand resting on your belly. Try to remember every flavor you've tasted, and failing, of course. Because some flavors don't stay on your tongue. They linger in your breath, your blood, your dreams. At some point, either in real life or the gentler place between sleep and memory, you hear the sound of pounding. Rhythmic, wooden. It's a mortar and pestle again. You rise, half curious, half drawn, and follow the noise to a small firelit space where 3 women are seated around a large bowl, working the dough for kita. Flatbread, yes, but not like injera. This one is thick, firm, fried on a griddle until the outside turns crisp and the inside stays soft, almost cake-like. No fermentation, no waiting, just grain, fire, and skill. You kneel beside them. Someone hands you a piece, still warm, still hissing slightly from the pan. It tastes like morning and evening all at once. Kita is the bread of travelers, field workers, and monks. It doesn't rise. It simply is, ready when needed, no questions asked. One of the women sprinkles it with berbera and salt, the way her grandmother did. Another drizzles it with honey, then passes it over silently. Sweet and heat together. You bite. You smile. You chew slowly. Kita doesn't impress. It anchors. And in this moment, that's all you need. Later, as the fire dims and the stars shift overhead, someone brings out duro ali cha, a mild chicken stew, pale yellow from turmeric, softer than the fire-breathing doro what you had before. This is comfort food, baby food, recovery food. You sip the broth. Close your eyes. It tastes like forgiveness, like the afterglow of indulgence. Historians still debate whether ali cha dishes came first, mild, simple, and sustaining, or if they emerged later as a balance to the spice. But tonight, it doesn't matter. It simply feels like the right note in a quiet song. And then, because Ethiopia cannot end a day without magic, someone places a jabina on the coals. One last Buna ceremony. This time, the coffee is even darker. Roasted longer, ground finer, poured slower. You sip, and somehow, this cup holds everything you've tasted. Smoke, spice, sweetness, soil, a memory of milk, though none was ever added. You drink it black, the way it was meant to be, the way it has always been. As the second cup is poured, Tana, someone sets down a small bowl beside you. A new dish, Bula. You blink. It's a porridge made from false banana, the fermented root of the inset plant, scraped and dried, and then boiled into a thick, elastic dish served with spiced butter or honey. You try it. It's unlike anything else. Tangy, slightly sour, textured like glue in the most loving way. It sticks to your spoon, your tongue, your bones. It tastes like survival, like the plant that grows where others won't. False banana doesn't bear fruit, but its root sustains entire communities. It's the kind of food that laughs in the face of drought and keeps stories alive in empty seasons. You eat. You understand. And now, the final cup. Baraka. Blessing. The guide appears. He's holding a bowl of ashuk, a traditional, thick stew from the Gurage people, made with fermented grains and seasoned meat. You're told it's served during family rituals, at births, deaths, forgiveness ceremonies. It's not spicy. It's serious. And it tastes old, not stale, not aged, old like the earth, like something that predates spoons and recipes and calendars. You chew slowly, and with it, swallow a quiet truth. You've been fed more than food. You've been given invitations, symbols, stories passed hand to mouth across centuries. As the last bite melts into your tongue, you realize you cannot replicate this in your own kitchen. Not really. You can learn the recipes. You can roast the barley. You can stir the shiro and pour the coffee and memorize the way to fold sambusas. But you cannot bottle what makes it sacred, because that comes from place, from hands, from history, and from being here, fully here, among the spices and goats and fire and laughter and silences too long to be translated. The stars above shimmer faintly, as if nodding in agreement. You lie back down. The mat rustles beneath you, and for the first time, you feel not like a guest, but like a witness to a cuisine that is not just taste, but time. The morning doesn't wake you. It eases into you, like light drifting under a curtain or the softest hand brushing your forehead. You open your eyes to a sky already pink at the edges, the kind of color that can't be described without sounding like you're making it up. Birds chirp in lazy pairs. Somewhere nearby, water trickles over stone. And then the smell. One last time. Wood smoke, toasted grain, and something sweet, maybe honey, maybe memory. You sit up slowly, bones creaking like a well-used cart, and wrap the woven shawl tighter around your shoulders. Your guide is waiting. Today there is no feast, no dozens of platters, no laughter echoing through courtyards or priests blessing each bite. Today there is only one bowl, and one spoon. He places it gently before you, as if it might break. Inside, kinche, cracked wheat, cooked low and slow, kissed with butter and a whisper of cardamom. This is Ethiopian comfort food at its barest, its boldest. It doesn't ask to be dressed up. It asks to be understood. You take a bite. It tastes like waking up in your own bed after a long journey. Warm, steady, familiar even if you've never had it before. It sticks to your ribs, but not in a burdensome way. It grounds you, reminds you that hunger isn't always about the stomach. Beside it, a tiny clay cup. More telba, of course. The sesame drink you met at the beginning now bookend your travels. There's something beautiful in that. Symmetry and slowness. You sip. A fly buzzes by. The goat walks past one final time, head high, expression smug, as if he were the one to lead you through this entire adventure. You tip an imaginary hat. He snorts. The guide gestures toward the ridge. You climb, not quickly. Your legs are heavy from rest, not exhaustion, but with the pace of someone who knows nothing else is waiting, and that's exactly enough. At the top, the valley spreads before you. Fields you walked, houses you entered, smoke trails from kitchens where your name was never known but your presence was always welcome. And it hits you, not like a lightning bolt, but like a slow wave. You're leaving something sacred, something old enough to not need you, but kind enough to let you in. The wind rises. You close your eyes, and just like that, the feast is over. Not with fanfare, not with dessert, but with stillness. The goat bleats once, possibly in applause. Or protest. You can't be sure anymore. Your guide pulls something from his bag, a small packet wrapped in cloth. You open it. Inside, a handful of kolo, a sprig of tenatum, and a piece of dried injera. Memory, he says simply. You nod. It's perfect. Historians still debate the power of food as record. Some say flavors are just passing pleasures. Others insist they carry the weight of language, memory, resistance. You believe the latter now. You know it, because you've tasted a feast that told a story of people, of faith, of famine and feast, of laughter, of patience, of survival layered on ritual layered on fire. And now it's time. You walk down slowly, clutching your little cloth packet. At the village edge, the air smells like firewood again. Always firewood. You pass by one last kitchen. Someone's baking daifo debo, the yeasted holiday bread, fragrant with cardamom and black seed. You don't stop, but the scent clings to your clothes like an embrace. And that, you think, is enough. As you step beyond the ridge, something shifts. You're no longer on the feast trail. You're back in your world, but your body carries echoes now. Your breath smells faintly of berbera. Your fingers still know how to tear injera. And your dreams? They'll carry the rest. Always. The fire is just embers now. You sit close, drawing in the last wisps of warmth as the coals pulse like sleepy heartbeats beneath the ash. The stars above have doubled, maybe even tripled, in number since the tale began. They hang like quiet witnesses to everything you've seen, everything you've tasted. There is no more movement in the village. Only the soft rustle of eucalyptus leaves overhead, the occasional shuffle of a sleeping goat, and the hush that wraps around places that have told you all their secrets. You breathe in. It smells faintly of smoke, and teff, and memory. The kind of scent you'll carry with you long after your shoes forget the dust. Your mind floats gently between bites of sambusa and bowls of shiro, between cups of coffee poured with ceremony and stews stirred with generations of wisdom. You remember the surprise of sourness, the heat that chased you, the comfort that followed. And through it all, laughter. So much quiet, knowing laughter. Even now, if you close your eyes, you can still feel the weight of the injera in your hand, the warmth of a kitchen hearth, the soft voice of someone explaining how to dip, how to fold, how to wait, how to share. The night hums, and you, full of food and history and something older than either, finally let yourself sink into stillness. No more steps, no more spice, just the slow breath of the hills around you, and the memory of 1,000 flavors whispered into your ear by a land that has always known how to speak through the tongue. Sleep now. The embers are fading, and the story, for now, is full.